Governor. Sophia Bolag here from the San Francisco Chronicle. I just wanted to clarify, you said that there's no deficit. Obviously, the plan you're putting forward is balanced, as it is required to be. But are you predicting any sort of a surplus? Is that what the projections show?
I guess you could argue there's a modest surplus, but it's in the margin.
Okay.
So no deficit. We don't, again, the LAO had a number. We have our number. We have the benefit of all our expenditures as well, and contemporary knowledge on the basis that they put that report out a few weeks ago, and we're putting ours out this Friday. They'll talk more about the details, but no, we're not in a position to have to make any adjustments that are of significance compared to what was announced last year in the 2-year budget. We actually were able to land it in a very good place. Not significant commitments to new ongoing money, significant commitments to accountability, transparency, and results in this budget is how I broadly would define the more broad spirit of the budget, and maintaining fiscal discipline in a time of deep uncertainty.
Got it. And just wanted to follow up, you mentioned the Doge department or project that the Trump administration.
I can't wait for the post-analysis of this in a few years.
Are there specific areas where you are particularly concerned that effort could have a specific impact on the California budget?
Well, I mean, you had they already came out saying they want to try to eliminate one of the competitors of Tesla, and this is a guy who's the co-chair of Doge, with the person who founded Tesla. I mean, in any other world, you couldn't make that one up, and press would have stopped, and everyone would have paused and gone, what the hell is going on with this country? That's a California-based company, Rivian, where they threatened to take back a $6 billion loan. So we're just in uncharted territory. And I say uncharted, mindful, again, I don't want to keep talking about, I rarely do, a book I wrote a decade ago. It's a space I care deeply about. I've always cared about it. I talked about taking the town square digital, talked about reinventing government. I started my work as a county supervisor, sort of mirroring a lot of the work that Al Gore did with Rego at the time. I mean, I think this is a deeply important space. Strategic plans, customer service plans I did, outcome-based measures. So it's an area of commitment. It's what our ODI was all about. That's what our RFI2 is about. So I love all that. I think that's all wonderful. I think it's critical, in fact. More choice, more voice, meet people where they are. And I talked about government as a platform, not as a vending machine. That was the metaphor I used in the framework of that book. So to the extent they advance those principles, I embrace it. If they talk about eliminating billions and billions of dollars to Medicaid, that's a different conversation. If they gut the Department of Education, special needs, we put $3.8 billion in special education the last few years to try to address the gaps there. I've got a different response. So that's how I'm looking at things. But the idea of making government more efficient, it's about time, is my point. Many administrations have done this. It's hardly novel to Donald Trump. It's just they named it in a different way, and they named one billionaire and another very wealthy person to run it. And so it just has its own question marks surrounding it. I'm trying to be fair. Anyway.
Hi, Governor. Laura Fitzgerald with Cap Radio in Sacramento. I wanted to follow up on that last question. You know, at the beginning of your presentation for the budget, you referenced the special fund for economic uncertainty, and I know you also have your special session going on. Could you explain maybe what in terms of lessons learned during the first Trump administration that informed how you went about allocating these funds this time around, and what you think could be different this time?
I mean, it's not lost on me. The sort of proverbial elephant in the room on my way down to Kern, as was just said, talk about the high-speed rail. Be remiss if I didn't talk about the money. I think it was, and forgive me, and I may be off, this is, I think it was $926 million or so. It was close to $1 billion that they rated of committed dollars for the high-speed rail. It took years to get that back. We were able to get that back. So that gives you a sense of our sensibilities. He's been talking about, he's celebrating the leadership of governors that celebrated the fact they did not expand Medicaid in their states. He's celebrating the fact that they intend to eliminate the Department of Education. He's celebrating the leaders of this Doge that are talking about $2 trillion in cuts. You can't cut $2 trillion without literally gutting entitlements. So that's a level of uncertainty that's next level uncertainty. We're looking at the kind of uncertainty in the context of the SFEU, which is a reference to that $4.5 billion that I made, which was $3.5 billion, so additional $1 billion on just timing and flexibility. He's not a dictator. He may assert dictatorial points of view, but he's not. There still is the rule of law, still a court system, still due process. And so you can threaten, as Trump has consistently done, that he will not provide people in the Central Valley relief, businesses, and individual relief for emergency. He won't provide suppression dollars in the midst of an emergency for law enforcement and firefighters. He may deny that, but ultimately those federal dollars will be recovered. But in that process of recovering them, we want some flexibility in terms of the state's cash position. And I think that's more reflected in what we're trying to do in terms of our budget, is just provide more flexibility so that we have a posture, if we need to push back against those assaults, and we have the ability to weather those assaults. What you see with the president-elect is, fire and fury often signifying something. You see fire and fury often signifying nothing. And you have to sort of work through all of that, again, based upon my own experience. And we do that, I think, from a position of strength, because, again, we're not only the fifth largest economy in the world, but size of 21 state populations combined, we're the 10th pole of the American economy, and we have cash positions unlike any other state in the country, and I want to maintain those positions so that we can push back.
Eitan Wallace here with Next Star Stations. I'm going to ask, just because we're talking top lines here, just want to make sure, just generally, just going to ask it, can you guarantee that this budget will not increase taxes?
Well, as long as I'm around, I'm going to fight hard against that. As you know, I've been against many of these proposals over the course of last number of years. No, there'd be no need. Now, the bottom could completely fall out. Trump could impose 60% tariffs against China. He could impose across-the-board 20% tariffs. He can move to deport millions and millions of undocumented Americans, or at least undocumented people living in America, and impact millions more mixed-status families, many that include American citizens. That impact could impact the labor market, could impact interest rates that could potentially go up, inflation that could go up. He could also incorporate $2 trillion, as he professes, in cuts to social services. Disproportionately would have to come from social services to achieve a $2 trillion savings. And that would radically change our outlook. Thus, the frame January to May, some flexibility, but absolutely not subject to anything along those lines. I will be holding the line against any taxes.
Thank you. Second question is, speaking of actually looking ahead way before May, just before the Trump inauguration, how are you feeling about the timing of the special session? Do you feel like the $25 million you want to see allocated to the Attorney General will get there before January 20th?
Legislative leaders have been exceptional. Members of the legislature have been exceptional. I think universally they recognize the stakes of the game. Many that were here a few years prior intimately understand the 122 lawsuits we were involved in with the Trump administration, and understand even as we were working with the Trump administration, they were still assaulting our values and programs and hard-earned rights under the law. And so we should anticipate nothing less than that. But we're hopeful that none of that transpires, that we don't have to spend a dollar of the $25 million. Open hand, always, not a closed fist. But no, I have all the confidence in the world based upon very contemporary conversations with leadership that we're going to land where we need to, get that done before the 20th. That was the idea, get it done before the 20th, and make sure that we're prepared for the worst and hoping for the best. January 10th.
Governor, has the president said he wants to meet with you tomorrow?
We haven't had any contact with the White House as of this moment.
Can you explain a little bit about your relationship? Because you cooperated very well as First Amendment fires. What happened here?
You have to ask him. We invited him out here. I'm glad he's coming out here. I'm grateful that the president is taking the time. I hope he does take the time to listen to the folks impacted directly by these wildfires. I hope he has a chance to visit the folks in Altadena, not just in the Palisades. And I hope he comes with a spirit of cooperation and collaboration. That's the spirit to which we welcome him. I've said this many times, open hand, not a closed fist. And I will reflect on the frame of your question. We had a great relationship during COVID, well established, well defined. I don't think there was a Democratic governor in the country that worked more collaboratively with the President of the United States. That's my mindset when it comes to emergencies and disasters. No politics, no finger pointing. We're going to have the backs of the people in this state, and I hope the President comes back after his visit tomorrow and is here for not just the short run, but the long haul.
So Governor, the legislature said that it was poor form on your part to establish a special session of the legislature before he even took office to Trump-proof the state, that sent a bad message. Well,
the Trump-proof is someone else's words, not ours. I think it was rather prescient. We're already engaged in lawsuits in litigation. He already has assaulted the 14th Amendment as a birthright citizenship. I think there's a likelihood of additional lawsuits as it relates to some of his executive actions, and we didn't have time to wait past his prologue. Not just my administration, which was just 2 years working with the Trump administration. The Brown administration had 2 years working with the Trump administration. Total, there was 122 lawsuits. We didn't initiate those lawsuits. They were in response to actions by the Trump administration. I thought it was important that we prepare for that, and I think by definition that preparedness has put us in a position where we can quickly move with the Department of Justice to assert ourselves against the backdrop of an assault on a lot of hard-earned progress here that goes back to Ronald Reagan, goes back to the 60s and 70s and 80s. So you could do both things at the same time. Nothing personal. It's just reality and being prepared and having that experience.
How is it not, Governor, how is it not personal? You've just described him as an assault, putting an assault on the 14th Amendment. We know that yesterday in an interview, President Trump said that you are responsible for not bringing water down from Northern California to Southern California. Is it possible to isolate this, to isolate the fires, and to have a relationship and a dynamic with the president to help resolve this? And are you worried about the federal government not reimbursing the $2.5 billion?
Well, it's not. You have to ask him that question. Not personal for me, any of those things. It's just fundamental policy disagreements on birthright citizenship. But on emergency preparedness, emergency management, there should be no daylight between federal administration and state and local representatives, and that's the spirit that defines today in the $2.5 billion, bipartisan. You had not just Tom Lackey, you had a number of other Republican representatives here, and we're grateful for them. We were there, their colleagues were there for other more conservative colleagues in more conservative parts of the state, up in Paradise and Campfire, and never even thought about it, never thought twice about that. So none of this is personal in any way, shape, or form. But it's some people want to politicize things. That's just not our approach. And as it relates to reimbursements, I have all the expectation and belief that we'll be reimbursed for these dollars, and that we'll have the support of Congress and the President of the United States. I absolutely believe that.
What about some of the concerns about the president saying that there should be limits on the funding for California unless the state does some sort of water?
Well, it's some sort of that is confusing to not just you, but to every expert and everyone that's tried to review it. The State Water Project has nothing to do with the fires here. Nothing. Period. Full stop. It's not he said, she said. This is not just an assertion. It's a foundational fact. And I think it's really important in terms of how we express the reporting here that we deal not just with both sidesism. The State Water Project has nothing to do with water supply as it relates to water suppression for municipal systems. The state reservoirs are at or near record highs, and the issues around the Endangered Species Act have been issues that have been litigated and adjudicated and politicized for as long as I've been alive. They're not novel to this administration. They go back to the George H.W. Bush administration and litigation and lawsuits. So again, that's why I take none of this personally. I just, with respect, think it's incredibly important that people know the truth, because it's very damaging when people believe such misinformation. And I don't mean it in a malign sense. Maybe the president just doesn't know that there's not a spigot that can be turned to solve all the water problems that he alleges exist that don't exist as it relates to the state water system here in Southern California.
So we're less than 24 hours away from his visit. You're saying you haven't had any contact with the White House at all?
Well, I haven't. I'm grateful, though, that he took our invitation to heart and that he will be here tomorrow. It's my understanding. I look forward to being there on the tarmac to thank the president, welcome him, and we're making sure that all the resources he needs for a successful briefing are provided to him. There's no limit to the resources we'll provide for that briefing, and as I say, I'm grateful that he appears to be coming out.
Plan on talking to him tomorrow?
Well, I certainly plan on being there at the tarmac and look forward to continuing to work not just with him, the administration, as it relates to the disaster recovery, as it relates to our efforts to collaborate with multiple federal agencies over the course of the next many years as we organize our approach to immediately address the debris removal. We're working now with the Army Corps of Engineers. So there's a direct relationship to debris removal in the Trump administration, and to make sure that's done effectively, not just quickly, but effectively, and making sure it's done safely, and to make sure that we move heaven and earth as it relates to waiving permits and making sure we break down every barrier for recovery so people can move quickly to reestablish their lives.
It's fundamentally a threat to take away money.
There's hundreds and hundreds. I think if I counted the number of threats to this state, I mean, that's on a list. I mean, we can run in 52 different directions every single day on all those threats, and hair on fire and the whole thing. So you adjudicate it, you respond to it, you take it seriously, you make a determination, as we do with the AG's office all the time. Have been, I think we're 9 lawsuits in 9, 10 weeks, 11 weeks. Which ones are the most serious, which ones are the most pressing, which ones do we feel we don't have a solid litigation strategy, or at least there's shaky grounds and whatever it is, and we make those determinations. So I think there were 6 missives or something. I think the New York Times, you wrote that. Maybe it was your writing, I don't know. There's a headline, 6 different things, actions against California that day. Hardly seems coincidental. So there may be something else at work there, and so you just, you take a look at it all and make a determination. But we take everything seriously, take some things literally. And right now, we take the most pressing issue, which is the uncertainty of tariffs and retaliatory tariffs that are inevitable, and a trade war that's inevitable with the actions that the president looks to make. We'll see in a matter of hours or minutes. It's almost, I guess, one.
You saw the committee vote yesterday. I'd like to ask you this opportunity. Appreciate it. What's your response to that vote? And also, should there, from your position as governor, should there be a California state law that restricts trans athletes from playing in those sports?
Well, I didn't pay any attention to the committee yesterday. I was literally spent most of the day talking about fire recovery with our teams. And progress is being made there, by the way, but we're starting to run up into some of those abundance conversations around permitting that's already starting to take shape, where most of my focus was yesterday. As it relates to that issue, my position is, I think, known, and that issue came to the fore with me on multiple occasions as governor. Came right into the office. We had a state track meet where there were 2 athletes that got into the finals, and because of, because people's reaction to that, they ended up not playing in the finals, and so you had 2 folks that didn't get in, 2 folks that did, no one playing. We tried to figure out how to balance this. Is there a way to make this work? We worked with experts. We literally were talking to some of the International Olympic Committee experts. We talked to our own state experts. We were trying to figure this out and couldn't figure it out. And that's my point of view, that I just couldn't figure out how to, quote unquote, make this fair. That said, I don't know there's a bigger champion for LGBTQ rights as an executive in the country. And I mean that. That's done more over the course of decades than I have. And so I'm deeply sensitive and empathetic to the community. And I can't stand those that demean the community and bully the community, talk down and use this to weaponize a political agenda. And I made that point. I said, you can hold both things in your hand in terms of the statement that I made on this at the time. And I continue to make that point. And so I'm looking just for empathy. These kids just want to survive. And so the question you're asking is the question we've been asking ourselves for months and haven't been able to answer. What is that finally? How can you make this fair? And I haven't been able to figure it out. And I'm about as transparent about this as anybody out there, particularly in my party, on this. And to the extent someone can and do it in a way that's respectful and responsible and could find the kind of balance, then I'm open to that discussion. That said, this is not where all my energy flows. You're talking about a very small number of people, a very small number of athletes. And my responsibility is to address the pressing issues of our time. And this, I think, has been colored in and weaponized by the right to be 10x, 100x bigger than it is. And so my focus is on a myriad of other issues in this state. And to the extent that someone could find that right balance, I would embrace those conversations and the dignity that hopefully presents themselves in that conversations, meaning the humanity around that conversation, not the politics around that conversation.
You know, you made some interesting comments to the LA Times in relation to the kind of pushback that you got from those comments, saying that you felt like you understood more than ever some of the right-wing criticisms of how Democrats have handled disagreements around this issue. And that came also a few days after your interview with Bill Maher, where you mentioned feeling like people tried to cancel you. And I'm wondering what...
Well, I don't know about anyone canceling. That has nothing to do with... Well, let me answer the question specifically. It's broader than that. I think it goes to the broader issue of having conversations with people you disagree with. That's fundamentally what those comments were about. And it's been difficult. It's difficult for some people. Certain people just aren't interested in having conversations with other people, and they have strong opinions about that, And so good people can disagree, and yeah, people have strong opinions and have expressed that in dismissive ways. And so I reflected on that, and I do have a bigger understanding. I mean, people don't like being talked down to or passed. People, the world of, and not from a gender perspective, this notion of everything's binary, it's this or that. And there's nuance in the world. And I think it's important to have space of nuance. And I'm trying to find that. That's why I'm doing this podcast. And obviously it struck a chord because we're still having this conversation. But I think it's important to have difficult conversations, or even have a civil conversation that may be difficult for people to listen to, because everybody's out there trying to tear each other down. And there's plenty of play. The world is polluted with that. Social media is polluted with that. I offer no value in that space. I'm not trying to tear everybody down. Why am I back in the Central Valley? Because I don't like the way people talk about the Central Valley. I don't like the way people talk down to the folks out in the Central Valley. I made that point on Bill Maher, too. I don't like people talking past these folks. So I keep coming back to make a point. It's consistent with what I've done all my life. I mean, I remember I married in a big Republican family. I don't know how many times I said that, but I don't know if people pay attention to that. What does that mean? That means I love and respect people I politically disagree with. And so for me, having conversations with people I disagree with is consistent with that. Heck, I spent almost, 3 hours in the Oval Office with President Trump. We're engaged in, constant battle of ideas and values, lawsuits, another one we filed yesterday. So, that's the approach. And, there's some strong opinions there, and I was reflecting on those. Anybody else?
Donald Trump's tariffs do not represent all Americans. And on behalf of 40 million Americans that live in the great state of California, the tentpole of the U.S. economy, 14% of the U.S. GDP, the fifth largest economy in the world, the dominant manufacturing state in America. Our state of mind is around supporting stable trading relationships around the globe. And that's why today I've directed my administration to look at new opportunities to expand trade and to remind our trading partners around the globe that California remains a stable partner. Today, I announced a lawsuit on behalf of the state of California suing the Trump administration. California is the largest manufacturing state in our union, one of the largest trading partners around the globe. No state will be impacted more than the state of California as it relates to the unilateral authority that's being asserted by the Trump administration to impose the largest tax increase in modern American history. Today, I announced a lawsuit on behalf of the state of California suing the Trump administration. California is the largest manufacturing state in our union, one of the largest trading partners around the globe. No state will be impacted more than the state of California as it relates to the unilateral authority that's being asserted by the Trump administration to impose the largest tax increase in modern American history.
Well, how can you not be? I've got 4 kids. 80% of their toys under their Christmas tree come from China. I've got family members living paycheck to paycheck. Many family members. My mom, who passed away years and years ago, was one of them. I mean, no rationale, no plan, no conscience to what it's doing to real people, no consideration of congressional responsibility. Where the hell is Congress? Where the hell is Speaker Johnson? Do your job. They're sitting there passively as this guy wrecks the economy of the United States of America, which has dominated the global economy. Don't take my word for it. The Wall Street Journal. We are the envy to the world. And overnight, a wrecking ball to America's reputation, our role, and our relationship. And so I'm angry as a parent, as a taxpayer, as someone who has a retirement account that didn't come from wealth, no trust funds in my family, worked hard all my life, a guy who has businesses. I know I have blind trust, and I trust you can appreciate that I won't try to cross the line on that. But as someone who's built a business that also is export dependent, some of them, industries like ag that I'm involved in, I have a unique understanding. It's not an academic understanding of the stress that folks are going through. And so it connects on every level. And so I'm angry about this. First question, perhaps you can advance that.
Yes, have you spoken to President Donald Trump?
I haven't spoken to him directly, but we reached out to the White House to give them heads up.
Governor, my name is Anahita Jafari. I'm a reporter with KCRA3 News. Last month, we reported how you sent bat phones to the CEOs of the largest companies headquartered.
Were they bat phones? I like that. I like the description, bat phones. I'm going to keep that. Yeah. All right, that's nice. I mean, it sounds.
Programmed into them. Have those CEOs discussed tariffs with you now through this new line of communication?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, all of them. There's not one that has expressed anything differently. All of them have brought the issue of tariffs up and uncertainty.
Can you say who you've been talking to?
No. I don't want to call them out. Again, the idea of let me just say, just on the meta point, in some matter, what the hell, bat phones and the governor. So I thought it was important that some of the biggest job creators, we've been doing this, as you know, with our Jobs First plan with small businesses. For the last few years, we've built this framework around regions rising together, and I'm really proud of that work. I felt we needed to do the same for some of the larger employers in the state. And so I reached out to them, and I did a burner phone and just put my cell phone in there, just with my number. And I wrote a handwritten note to each one of the CEOs saying, you need something, call me. Here's my cell phone. And to your point, and some of your reporting, a lot of them have reached out directly. I will say, full disclosure, a lot of them thought it was fraud. They didn't know what to expect. They didn't even know it was real. They didn't even know what was going to happen with stuff. So we had security personnel call saying, is this actually from you guys? So it's been an interesting experiment. I'm just being a little too forthright with you. But for those that got it, eventually, many of them just texted, said, I just want to confirm it's you. Those conversations, there just simply hasn't been one of them where tariffs haven't been brought up, period. Every single one of them have, by definition, of course. I mean, it's just, I said, the worst on goal in the history of this country. One of the most self-destructive things that we've experienced in modern American history. I mean, the Attorney General just laid out the 22%. Some have estimated as much as 26.7, 27% all in. But you're getting near that the Smoot-Hawley numbers that every independent assessment said exacerbated the Great Depression. I mean, it's literally comparable to that. I know a thing or two about China. I've sat down with President Xi. This is serious. And we need to take it seriously. And again, no state has more to lose. Yeah, it's this is the distraction of the day, the art of distraction. Don't get distracted by distractions, we say, and here we zig and zag. This is the debate they want. This is their 80-20 issue as they've described it. Those that believe in the rule of law defending it. But it's a tough case because people are they defending MS-13? Are they defending, someone who's out of sight, out of mind in El Salvador? I mean, we're perfect sheep. So I want to answer your question. I don't know I add much value answering it. I mean, are you kidding me? Come on. I remember I saw some pundit the other day say, I remember that Newsom guy when he did gay marriage in 2004. The hell is he talking about? He's kept marrying people, 4,036 couples from 46 states and 6 countries. What about the rule of law? Well, maybe they forgot. The judges said there was no irreparable harm. And when the judges, the California Supreme Court, said we should stop, we stopped immediately. It wasn't even in question. When a judge adjudicates, it's not a question. How in the hell are we even debating that? It's Orwellian that you're debating that. And it's exactly the debate they want, because they don't want this debate on the tariffs. They don't want to be accountable to the markets today. They don't want to answer for NVIDIA taking a $5.5 billion charge. They don't want to have a real conversation with Christine and what's going on in terms of the export uncertainty here in the Valley. They want to have this conversation. Don't get distracted by distractions. We're all perfect sheep. Thank you guys very much.
How do you get along? You and Elon Musk used to get along pretty well back in the day.
Yeah.
How are you getting along now? Have you talked about any of these
See,
concepts?
this is what happens. This is why I need my chainsaw. No, I haven't talked to him lately. Unsurprising, but a lot of folks that knew him for decades haven't talked to him lately. I've talked to a lot of those folks, comparing notes, and hopefully he comes back around. I feel like he's been, there's some new challenges he's facing, and I think, one of them is fulfilling the expectations that he set for Doge, which seem unfulfilled. They haven't come close to the savings they've asserted. And even the savings they have asserted, when you stress test it, shows holes. So I think it's been very damaging, including, by the way, the fact that Doge cut $400 million from AmeriCorps. That was SARS Shriver in 1965. The best of people coming together across their differences for shared experiences in service to our nation. That was a baton that was passed from Republican administrations to Democratic administrations, just eliminated, wiped out $400 million while we're advancing our 16th lawsuit against the administration. If that's his legacy, it's tarnishing the legacy that he should otherwise be proud of, creating one of the world's great automobile companies and rocket companies. And I say stitching together because, candidly, this is hard to communicate for many of us. It's hard to disseminate for the media. And it's hard to distill the essence for the public. I could have easily come in here with sunglasses and, chainsaws, you know where I'm going, and gotten your attention. I could regale you and give you stories about how we're tearing things down. And we can celebrate the conflict and the energy, and that would run with the news, and people feel like, well, at least they're doing something. And people would say, well, you know, they seem to be taking action. Government is bloated. It's not effective. It's not efficient. It's not engaged. We want to shake the machine. And that's a pretty effective communication strategy. There's no doubt about it. I was sitting literally on Sunday, front court of my 9-year-old's basketball game, and a father up to me and said, you know, Governor, I didn't want to talk politics. It was the kids' halftime. He goes, but, you know, is there something, you know, wouldn't it be good if the blue states would come together and do a Doge? A Doge for blue states. I know. And I was trying to explain. I said, what do you, I said, no, let me explain. He goes, no. I said, well, we have been. He goes, well, you really should do that. I said, no, we have been. He goes, I really encourage you to do this. And I started explaining what we were doing, and his eyes glazed over. He wants to see the chainsaw. He wants the sunglass. He wants the theatrics, the performative side of this. He wants the friction. He wants the protests, because then it's a proof point of the concept. Without that, he struggles. And without that, we have struggled to communicate this. Let me give you a proof point. The announcement we're making today was done in partnership with state workers and employees.
Donald Trump, without consulting California law enforcement leaders, commandeered 2,000 of our state's National Guard members to deploy on our streets, illegally and for no reason. This brazen abuse of power by a sitting president inflamed a combustible situation, putting our people, our officers, and even our National Guard at risk. That's when the downward spiral began. He doubled down on his dangerous National Guard deployment by fanning the flames even harder. And the president, he did it on purpose. Thanks to our law enforcement officers and the majority of Angelenos who protested peacefully, the situation was winding down and was concentrated in just a few square blocks downtown. But that's not what Donald Trump wanted. He again chose escalation. He chose more force. He chose theatrics over public safety. He federalized another 2,000 Guard members. He deployed more than 700 active U.S. Marines. These are the men and women trained for foreign combat, not domestic law enforcement. We honor their service. We honor their bravery. But we do not want our streets militarized by our own armed forces, not in LA, not in California, not anywhere. Trump is pulling a military dragnet all across Los Angeles, well beyond his stated intent to just go after violent and serious criminals. His agents are arresting dishwashers, gardeners, day laborers, and seamstresses. That's just weakness masquerading as strength. Donald Trump's government isn't protecting our communities. They're traumatizing our communities. And that seems to be the entire point. California will keep fighting. It will keep fighting on behalf of our people, all of our people, including in the courts. If some of us could be snatched off the streets without a warrant, based only on suspicion or skin color, then none of us are safe. Authoritarian regimes begin by targeting people who are least able to defend themselves, but they do not stop there. Trump and his loyalists, they thrive on division because it allows them to take more power and exert even more control. And by the way, Trump, he's not opposed to lawlessness and violence as long as it serves him. What more evidence do we need than January 6th? What Donald Trump wants most is your fealty, your silence to be complicit in this moment. Do not give in to him. Democracy is under assault
before our eyes. This moment we have feared has arrived. He's taking a wrecking ball to our founding fathers' historic project. 3 co-equal branches of independent government. There are no longer any checks and balances. Congress is nowhere to be found. Speaker Johnson has completely abdicated that responsibility. The rule of law has increasingly been given way to the rule of Don.
Mr. Vice President, we read that you're coming to California, which is important. It's been months now since some of the most devastating wildfires in U.S. history occurred. Tens of thousands of lives completely torn asunder. I hope you have an opportunity to spend some quality time with some of the victims, the families, the Palisades, and also spend some time in Altadena, which is incredibly important. It's also important as well, and I honestly mean this, that you sit down with the President of the United States, who just a couple days ago suggested that these American citizens may not get the support that other citizens get all across this country in terms of disaster relief. I hope we get that back on track. We're counting on you, Mr. Vice President.
We're happy to answer any questions. A few weeks ago. Yeah.
When was the last time you guys spoke directly about this request on forest land and managing forest land?
Well, we've had this conversation over the course of many, many years, and he's well aware of the importance of these investments, not only from the time that he and I spent at Campfire in Paradise, seeing the destruction of that again on a federal land initiated, the responsibility that's placed with him to rake his forests, 57%, 3% California responsibility, 57% his responsibility. Patrick just made the point, $350 million of state taxpayer money to rake his forests, the federal forests, because they're not doing their job. So we've had this conversation over the course of many, many years. We've sent a number of direct correspondence. We've worked through our congressional delegation. We've worked for our state staff that resides in Washington, D.C. to make this a priority. I could not be more pleased with the leadership of Adam Schiff and Senator Padilla in particular on this issue, that have been strong advocates with their colleagues in Congress. And there are a number of members of our California delegation that have led the way. There are other members of the California delegation that just supported cuts to Forest Service and forest management and cuts to NOAA and FEMA, which is remarkable. Many of them allegedly represent, look that word up, districts like this.
Going back to CalGuard, the AP reported yesterday that Mark has asked that 200 members be returned to wildfire duty. Do you know anything about that?
Well, Secretary Exit, our defense secretary, might take that recommendation and direct these young men and women back and get them back out here. So I'm hopeful. Well, we've been very vocal about that, not just part of it. We've been explicit in that request for the last few weeks. We couldn't be more clear in highlighting this issue. And so we've been very direct. And we've not just done that publicly. We've done that privately. We've done that through the chain of command. This is serious stuff. Well, the response that you highlighted, that the AP highlighted, was the first indication that our requests are being considered, and we're looking forward to the formal announcement from the Department of Defense and from the Secretary of Defense, and we're hopeful that occurs imminently, so we can get these folks back out there. And the same should be extended for those teachers that want to teach summer school. Same should be extended to those firefighters that want to go back and protect their communities at home, and those in law enforcement, sworn officers that were taken off the beat and streets that should get back home as well, not just the rattlesnake teams. I mean, this is just the theater of the absurd. The whole thing is a theater of the absurd. And everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. And so it's time for grown-ups to do the right thing and send these men and women back and do so immediately. With that, grateful. Thanks, everybody.
Governor, regarding immigration, where does the state currently stand with the ongoing legal challenges to what's happening in ICE detention?
Well, I mean, it's a complex question, as you know, because there's multifaceted considerations and, as a consequence, responses. I'll give you one example. L.A. City's sanctuary ordinance, there's a litigation on that. There's litigation as it relates to other aspects of immigration at the state level, aspects that are derivative or associated or connected as it relates to broader DEI issues. You saw the assault on public education yesterday at $811 million for all quote-unquote title programs. These are the programs for the most vulnerable that were already budgeted, of which the state already contributes on behalf of the districts 25% up front, where now we're going to either have to backfill or see direct impacts of critical programs, professional development for teachers and other programs for diverse communities. It's an ideological assault. We are involved in, as you know, more lawsuits than any other state. We're more fortified to litigate because we funded our litigation strategy through a special session, and we're not going to be timid in pushing back. But we've been successful so far with most of the litigation, and most importantly on immigration, successful in the past, and I'll leave you with that. There was a litigation in the first Trump administration in the Ninth Circuit federal courts adjudicated that our policies related to SB 54 were constitutional, and so we're confident in our grounds they'll be firmly established.
Regular people are not aware that the wheels of justice turn so slowly.
That's the challenge.
How do you address the frustration that seems to take forever to stop it?
Well, that's why these injunctions matter. That's why the Supreme Court decision just a few days ago was so consequential as it relates to local courts impacting broader national rules and regulations. And, of course, that assault on the rule of law that will be part of the weaponization, the further weaponization of the rule of law by the Trump administration is obvious concern. But look, on that, we'll continue to file aggressively for TROs and injunctions. We'll try to stop and stay these efforts to vandalize our democracy and to assault our rule of law, and notably to take grant funding that Congress has legally appropriated, that the president does not have the unilateral authority to take. We'll continue in that posture as aggressively as we possibly can with the best legal minds we have. The broader issue of what's happening on the streets, there's not a day that goes by I can regale you with saved videos that just break your heart of women screaming because they're being taken away by people with masks that refuse to provide IDs in unmarked cars in the middle of the day, in the middle of the streets, without any arrest warrants, without any criminal history, desperate just to provide medication to their young children, just being disappeared in the United States of America. You've got 4,000 military wasting hundreds of millions of dollars, military that are not working in our parks and playgrounds. They've taken National Guard that are teachers that are supposed to be teaching summer school. They've taken National Guard men and women off our wildfire efforts. They've taken National Guard out of fire departments and paramedic offices that can't be there in emergencies, and they're sitting there in the armories. Pure theater, doing nothing. Serious moment. So we'll continue our posture, but we need to continue to remind people. I know people can feel overwhelmed, the shock and awe of everything that's going on, but we need to understand the moment we're living in. I know I made a comment about the Alcatraz alligator. That was just, these are flim-flammers. They're not serious people. What an embarrassment. Imagine the rest of the world looking at that. Mocking people, saying, well, if you're going to run, zig and zag. The President of the United States of America. I revere that office. We all should. Founding fathers didn't live and die to see that show. What an embarrassment. $450 million a year of wasted tax money for pure theater. So, there's strong opinions, but we'll continue to push back in very aggressive ways.
Don't let that happen. We've sued him 26 times. We did a special session to prepare for that. And by the way, when I say the most un-Trump state, Trump 1.0, we sued him 122 times. And here's the good news, Madam Chair. We won almost 90% of the lawsuits. Thank you for supporting these remarkable leaders. Thank you, remarkable leader, for being here and passing that torch, because that's what it's about. Back to my origin story here in the first hand I showed you. I got 4 kids. And I started in Florence today, kind of shook up, because I saw a picture of 2 kids that were images of a sister, 12, 13 years old, with her 9-year-old sister. Bodies were found a few miles down from their camp, together, holding their hands, doing everything in their power to stay together. I got kids that age. Got daughters that age. Got sons. You do as well. Granddaughters. This is what it's about. I mean, this is it. There's no do-over. And so my call to you is simple. You have the power to shape the future. The future is not just some experience that to manifest. Decisions, not conditions, determine our fate and future. It's not what happens to us, it's how we respond to it. And our opportunity presents itself anew. In 18 months, you have the power to end Donald Trump's presidency. Because the fact of the administration ends. Sure, he'll be fire and fury signifying something. We'll have to deal with the tweets. We'll have to deal with the attacks and the bullying. But the legislative agenda is effectively over. Enough of 17 million people getting kicked off Medicaid. Enough of rural hospitals being down. Enough of cutting food stamps and Meals on Wheels. Enough of tax breaks for people that don't need them. Enough of stacking a generation with more debt. You have that power in these midterms. So I want you to know how important you are. And I want to thank you for being here today. But most importantly, I want to thank you for everything you're doing tomorrow, next month, and next year as we take back that House of Representatives and we take back that power and we leverage this country, the United States of America. Questions here today.
Governor Newsom, your personal and your governor's press office social media accounts have taken a much more aggressive tone over the last couple of weeks. Recently, the press office called Stephen Miller a cuck on Twitter. How do you differentiate yourself from Trump if you're using state and personal social media accounts to name call and attack him?
Well, it's a response to Stephen Chung in the White House and his use of that word. I don't think they understand any other kind of language, so I have no apologies for standing tall and firm and pushing back against their cruelty. And if it requires more clear language, requires a recognition that things have radically changed with Trump presidency, then I will assert myself as I feel fit. And I'll do so with clarity and conviction. The difference between Donald Trump and the Trump administration and the state of California and the work that's being done by many elected officials here is we don't just exercise our formal authority, we also exercise our moral authority.
Governor Newsom, last week...
Nothing. Yeah, we're trying to, it's interesting, it was a question I got today, and I think it's much deeper than people think. You know, we tend to measure things in the aggregate. We don't live in the aggregate. You know, it's not about GDP. It's about communities, these small businesses. This is not, with all due respect, about Apple and NVIDIA. You know, it's not about Tim Cook being able to make a call and getting an exemption, or some of those farmers that after the rage in Ventura on behalf of the Farm Bureau, because they were big donors to Donald Trump, made the call. So he the next day said, I'm going to back off. Of course he didn't, but said he would. They have no advocate, these small businesses. It's incalculable when you're down 6 to 7% in business. Imagine being down 60 or 70%. You don't get that back. You could lose your house because you've got a line of credit on your house against your business. You could lose everything, your dreams, your family. How do you calculate that? And so I don't know the answer to that. I want to know I'm mindful. We need to understand that. I pray that these guys pay attention in Washington, D.C. and end this charade. Thank you guys very, very much. Thank you guys.
Thank you for your patience. Governor, you alluded earlier to Speaker Johnson maybe not being the speaker anymore in this conversation that's been going on about redistricting.
No, that's good.
Yeah. It sounds like you're looking for, if you potentially wanted to reopen this conversation about drawing maps.
Which I don't. Goes to your question.
Well,
these guys, look, you got to. I don't. It's not what I want to do. Let me explain it, because I'm going to validate where you're going. I was one of, at the time, I don't recall, this may be overstated, but I thought I was one of a handful of Democrats in elected office that supported independent redistricting when it first was promoted. I support independent redistricting. I think it should be done at a national level. At the same time, I also am mindful next year is the 250th anniversary of the founding of this great country. And I'm very fearful about what's going on in this country. When Donald Trump calls in to the Texas legislature along the lines of the phone calls he made saying, find me some votes in Georgia, and says, find me 5 more seats in Texas, they're playing by a different set of rules. They can't win by the traditional game, so they want to change the game. We can act holier than thou. We could sit on the sidelines, talk about the way the world should be, or we can recognize the existential nature that is this moment. And so it took me a moment to reconcile my own feelings. Very proud of the work Governor Schwarzenegger and others did on that. It's a national model. Right now, there may not be a nation to model. And so my response to that, and I want to finish because it's the question you're asking, has been to explore what we can do about it. And that's exactly what I've tasked my team. And there are 2 alternatives if you're interested. You can call a special session and we can move forward. And we're exploring that. And we've had real conversations about that. There are also a number of legal experts that have come to us exploring an alternative to that. Through an urgency measure, the legislature can move forward with new maps as it relates to federal districts. And that is option. That is also being considered. And both of those are being advanced in real time, not only with members of the legislature, but others that are interested because they feel the same pressures I do about the existential threat of what Donald Trump and some of these Republican states are trying to do.
But forgive me to ask a question to this. I'm having a hard time squaring how that does still, either of those options, not fundamentally bump up against the will of the voters who approved an independent.
Well, it's pretty easy. The option 1 is, by definition, reconciles that. By definition, because it would require those same voters to make a determination on the basis of current facts. We can be stubborn, and just assume everything's status quo ante. I mean, they've changed. There's no. Used to be 3 co-equal branches of government. One's completely disappeared in real time. The rule of law is being challenged every single day. Just ask all the masked people running around here. People are disappearing. Quite literally, a word you hear all the time. People are quite literally disappearing with no due process, no rights. The courts take forever to advance the cause of any reconciliation. You've got a president that's talking about recalling folks and judges he disagrees with or just completely dismissing, runs right up to the edge on the rule of law, on decisions that are made by the courts, and whether or not it works for him, or decides on a whim, nah, it won't. So things have changed, and so that would be the argument I would make. But again, I don't come to this lightly. This is not a point of, it's just a point of rationalization, and I hope a realization for everyone else. Everything has changed, and it's changing in real time. And I'm not going to be the guy that said I coulda, woulda, shoulda. I'm not going to be passive at this moment. I'm not going to look at my kids in the eyes and say I was a little timid, or I didn't like the word that this guy used. I'm just not going to be that guy. I'm sorry. What more evidence do you need? I mean, everything that damn's happened last 6 months in this part of the state. So that's my approach, and to the extent that others share it, by definition, it requires the consent of our represented body, the legislature, and they'll make that determination. And if they choose the path of a ballot initiative, the people of this state will decide for themselves in the spirit that brought you that law in the first place.
Gobernador, sus palabras. Gracias. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Thank you. In many respects, this is an appropriate place to be with all the noise out there. Reminds me of all the noise in our politics, all the distractions, the daily discourse, the weave from one issue to the next issue, Truth Social, post on X, the intentional nature of the shock and awe that is our body politic today. And so often we lose sight of what's essential. So often we lose sight with all those distractions on what matters most. And it's what matters most that brings us here today. It's an honor to have the delegation here from Texas, an honor to have leaders from the Texas delegation representing many of the different caucuses that we here in California are familiar with. Two of the most diverse states in the world, most diverse democracy. Texas and California have so much in common. Of course, our politics is a little different. And the question I imagine many folks are asking here in California, what do the politics of Texas have to do with the politics here in California? The answer is everything. Everything now is made clear and vivid. We have an administration that wants to roll back most of the progress of the last half century. They want to put America in reverse to bring us back to a 1960s, pre-1960s world. We talked about voting rights, LGBTQ rights. We talked about the rights of women in the meeting a moment ago. We talked about everything that's at stake. Everything is at stake if we're not successful next year in taking back the House of Representatives. Of course, we want a fair playing field. We want to play the game on the terms where everybody is playing by the same set of rules. That's no longer the case. We have to disenthrall ourselves that that's the case. Not with Donald Trump, not when he made a call to the governor of Texas and talked about finding 5 additional seats so that he can try to hold the line and maintain the majority in the House of Representatives. The game has changed. They don't even want to play by the same set of rules. In fact, they just want to throw the entire board. And they want to throw it all out. It is a 5-alarm fire for democracy in the United States of America. And so that's why we're here, to have the back not only of those representatives from Texas, but the people of Texas that are struggling and suffering from the same kind of assault on not just the rule of law, but this assault on democracy that binds us together as a nation. And so a threat, I think, the threat of injustice anywhere, as Dr. King said, is a threat of justice everywhere. And so we feel a connection. We feel a sense of responsibility. And we feel it's right to assert ourselves a little bit more moral clarity at this moment, using not just our moral authority, but using our formal authority. And considering, as we now have, that there is a chance to ask the voters of the state of California to reconsider their prior position. I've asked myself that same question as someone that actively supported independent redistricting, that believes it should be nationalized, but we have not seen the nationalization of independent redistricting. Things have changed, so too must we. And I believe that the people of the state of California understand what's at stake. If we don't put a stake into the heart of this administration, there may not be an election in 2028. That's how strongly I feel about this moment. And I think millions, hundreds of millions of Americans feel the same. We take Donald Trump seriously when he talks about the 2028 election. I mentioned to my friends a moment ago that I got a hat, a Trump 2028 hat from one of Donald Trump's biggest supporters, one of his biggest and most influential supporters. They're not screwing around. We cannot afford to screw around either. We have got to fight fire with fire. And I'll close on that point. What more evidence do you need in the state of California in the last just 6 months? Warrantless raids all across this state. Conditioning, threatening to condition disaster aid on the basis of politics, not on the basis of principles and the needs of people. We've seen these illegal tariffs take shape and impact this state disproportionately more than any other state. All of this is on the line. And so that's why we're here drawing not just new lines, but standing firm and trying to hold the line on democracy, our freedoms, our liberties, things that we can no longer take for granted. So I want to just thank all of you. They all flew out this morning. They recognized the stakes, and I'm very honored to have had this opportunity to dialogue, to compare notes, and to let the folks know in Texas, but also here in California, this is not an idle threat to our democracy. This is real, and we not only have the backs of Texans, but we may be back to the ballot here in California trying to right this wrong. With that answer. Yeah, look, I can't answer that. We're just looking at the process. We're looking at different pathways to advance that process. There are no maps that have been drawn. There's no sort of inside knowledge I have on that basis. This is a fluid conversation that frankly came in reaction to the phone call from Donald Trump to Greg Abbott in Texas and the break the glass moment we're in. And look, this is existential. This is real life. Everything's on the line here. It's not a gross exaggeration. I feel that in my bones. Again, how could I not, as someone who was an advocate for that independent redistricting years and years ago? This is a critical moment. And so look, we're looking at 3 or 4 different pathways as it relates to the when and the how. And I say 3 or 4. It's not just a legislative pathway. It's which legislative pathway. It's not just direct democracy as it relates to a special election and a ballot, but it's what you put on the ballot and what's considered, what's not considered. So all of that is happening in a very fluid way. There's just component parts of each. What exactly are you putting forward? Are you putting out the maps? Are you creating a process that unfolds after? What's the exact question you're trying to answer? What are you trying to achieve? For how long a period are you trying to achieve it? There are many different questions that are being considered, and we're gaming all those things out. I just want folks to know we have been gaming them out. We are committed to this process. This is not a bluff. This is real, and it's made, trust me, more real after listening to these leaders today, how existential this is. I think I'm told, my understanding is there's multiple polls that are out there independent of this process, meaning our process directly. So I think a lot of people are asking that question. I don't know about anything as relates to IDs or anything like that, but there are a lot of different public polls being done. I imagine some of your organizations may be doing them as well. I have not had the privilege or opportunity to review any poll as it relates to this question yet, and I look forward to seeing where the public is based, and I'll end on this and let these guys get back home. The anecdotal response is off the charts. people understand what's at stake. There's clarity and understanding. And increasingly, you're seeing that across the country. I want to thank their colleagues that also visited with other governors today, J.B. Pritzker among them. You have other governors that are also expressing not just private concern, now increasingly expressing public concern. They understand what's at stake if these guys rig the game. They play by a different set of rules. And we can sit back and act as if we have some moral superiority and watch this 249, almost 250-year experiment be washed away. We are not going to allow that to happen. We have agency. We can shape the future. And that's what this conversation today was all about. Thank you guys very, very much. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions. Be no need. We'd have no need to move forward. Yeah. There's two paths. We're kicking. It's the right question. We're two paths. There's the cleanest path to be candid as it relates to asking the voters that enacted this in the first place to consider the new conditions. I mean, I'm reminded of, I think it was the 1865 speech of Lincoln, who said the case is new, so we must think anew, but most importantly, we must act anew. To act the voters of the state of California to reconsider on the basis of the case being anew here in California. But the legislature is kicking the tires, and we're working with the legislature on that alternative path as well. So we're in the process of a deliberative process, very intentional process of looking at different pathways and looking at different possibilities, but it is predicated on Texas moving forward.
So our message is that we're going to let Californians figure out California. We're going to use every tool at our disposal in the state of Texas to confront this very illegal redistricting process that is going to be done on the backs of historic African American and Latino districts. So we were coming to share the state of play in the state of Texas, but we have no influence, nor do we want to even suggest how California should proceed. We leave that in the capable hands of Governor Newsom.
Effort. Can you talk about how realistic it is with such a tight timeline? If you're hoping to put this on the ballot in November, on November 4th, there's have to be 45 days that needed for mail out ballots and things like that. So how confident are you in getting this done with such a tight timeline?
Very. And we'll get it done. And the goal is to get it on the November 4th ballot, where other municipal elections are already occurring.
So, Governor, I mean, you basically have to act by the end of this month to meet those timelines. What if Texas hasn't actually done anything by then? I mean, are you just going to move ahead with it anyway as a backup plan?
I'll repeat what I said earlier because it's important, and I appreciate the opportunity to clarify it on the basis of your question. We have trigger component of this effort. So it only goes in effect if it's triggered by action that occurs in Texas.
To be clear, the ballot language says this would not go into effect with Texas's maps or any other state. Is that?
I want to make something clear. The ballot language says nothing at the moment. The ballot language is being worked on at the moment in a process that began a few weeks ago. That process, and I appreciate you highlighting last night, there were a series of additional meetings, and they continue today, and they'll continue over the course of the next few weeks. We're very mindful of the calendar, mindful of what is required. The legislative leaders are deeply mindful of that as well, working with the respective caucuses. The language is being worked on. It's being negotiated. It's being debated within the caucus, and it will be made available in very transparent terms to the people of the state of California that will ultimately make the determination for themselves, what they want for themselves. And that, I think, is what distinguishes our efforts from the efforts in states like Texas. We have a process that's well established here in the state to engage the legislature in a deliberative process to advance legislation, and we'll maintain the core tenets of that process in an open and transparent way. You know, it's well established in this state that we have rules that distinguish us from other states, including the 72-hour rule for full transparency, and so we'll make things available as quickly as we can on the basis of the consensus that we're drafting.
Any maps yet? So who is drawing those maps, and what is the target number of Democratic seats that you're asking for on that?
I'm not asking specifically for anything except a process to unfold with congressional legislation, the congressional delegation, and members of the California State Assembly and State Senate. And that's a process that they're engaging in, and it's a process that's very familiar. Redistricting is very familiar to all of us. And these are maps that I'm told are relatively familiar as well. I mean, the independent redistricting puts out maps all the time. I have seen many maps over the years, and some are approved, some are not. And those process is unfolding as we speak, but it is not a process that I, as governor of the state of California, am advancing in any detail. It is a process that's happening with the delegations. It's a process that will be made transparent, fully transparent, and the ultimate determination of this approach will be made by the people of the state, and we hope that occurs with the special election that will coincide with municipal elections, many, not all. LA City is one, others as early as November 4th.
Do you have a target number of pickup Democratic?
As I said, we will punch above our weight, and we will more than address the concerns that have been expressed by actions in other states.
Can I ask one question?
Do you think it will erode the confidence, though, in the independent redistricting office? Like, coming back to that, if we're just going to go around it every time, how can we think of it as an independent one that we've given that power, so to speak, to?
Well, we believe in the core principles. Things have changed. I mean, again, the word disenthrall is the operative word here. You know, when things change, facts change, you've got to change. This is serious stuff. I mean, I could just remind you just some tactical points. I mean, you want more warrantless arrests of people that look more like the Attorney General than me? You want to continue to sit back as we have aid to people that are desperate and in need to get their lives back on track because of one of the most significant disasters, natural disasters in American history that happened in Southern California? You want that aid conditioned on a political whim of someone in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? I go down the list. All of that is on the line here. It's not a gross exaggeration, not an exaggeration at all. Remember, the origin story here is Donald Trump made a phone call, so familiar. Just out in the open, corruption at a whole nother level. Do not allow this to be normalized. Told Greg Abbott, I need you to find me, in this case, 5 representatives. These guys aren't screwing around. So I'm not here to, it's not an intellectual exercise. I'm not here to be a member of some think tank. We're here as pragmatists, practitioners, and I've got kids. I care deeply about the 250th anniversary of this great country that we'll celebrate next year. It's all at risk. This guy's not screwing around, and nor are we.
You said you haven't.
Some of the supermajority, though, has indicated they're not convinced that this is a good idea yet. Are you confident you're going to be able to get them on board with
Deeply confident.
But on such a tight timeline, and I mean, you promised California voters these maps wouldn't be drawn in a back room; they'd be available for people to see. But how can you guarantee that? And the ballot language isn't done behind closed doors, which, as we've acknowledged and we've reported, there's already been at least 1, 2, 3 closed-door meetings so far on this. I mean, Texas's process was done behind closed doors, and then people got to see those maps within days, and there was public outrage. There was a ton of public comment. I mean, how can you guarantee the process here won't be exactly the same as it was in that state?
One has nothing to do with the other. Forgive me. The ultimate test of transparency is what's in the voting pamphlet. The ultimate test of transparency is what voters will decide on. Full light of day, completely public. They will have the opportunity to review those maps. They'll have ample opportunity to do just that, and it will be in their ballot box, and they'll make that determination. That is in stark contrast to the example that you just advanced.
We're hearing that California Democrats have a draft, or almost are done with the draft of these maps. Have you been in conversations with leadership about this? Have you seen the maps? And of course, this would end up going through the legislature.
I haven't seen the maps, but we helped initiate those conversations. My team were part of those conversations last night. They've been an ongoing series of conversations that continued into the evening, continued this morning, and will continue until we land on a process. That process has to have the concurrence, the support of 2/3 of the legislature. The maps, we believe, should be transparent. They should be provided in a transparent way to the public. And as a consequence, those maps are being processed and will be brought to light. I have not had the opportunity, nor am I getting into the details of what those maps look like. I'll allow more objective minds to do just that. But the ultimate determination will be by the people of the state of California. We will offer them the opportunity to make judgment for themselves. Again, only if Texas moves forward. We would maintain the framework of the Independent Redistricting Commission that I support, that I believe in. We would just allow for this mid-census redistricting to occur just for congressional maps in 26, 28, and 30. It would also state, as I said a moment ago, and I'll reinforce, that we believe it should be national model, independent national redistricting, and it would revert back to its original form. But it's done in response to the existential realities that we're now facing. Things have changed. Facts have changed. So we must change. I think it's in the spirit of, Lincoln's infamous second inaugural. We have to disenthrall ourselves so we can save this country. We've got to think anew. We've got to act anew. Things have changed. We're reacting to that change. They've triggered this response, and we're not going to roll over. And we're going to fight fire with fire. But we're going to do so not just punching with the weight of the fourth largest economy, the most populous state in our union, the size of 21 state populations combined, but we also will punch above our weight in terms of the impact of what we're doing. And I think that should be absorbed by those in the Texas delegation. Whatever they are doing will be neutered here in the state of California. And they will pay that price. And we believe public opinion is with our approach. And I appreciate the growing recognition in other states of other governors of like mind and the people of this country recognizing what's at stake. These folks don't play by the rules. If they can't win playing the game with the existing set of rules, they'll change the rules. That's what Donald Trump has done. He's dialing for seats. Familiar because he dialed for votes in the last election. Here's someone who tried to break this country, tried to light democracy on fire on January 6th. He recognizes he's going to lose in the midterms, and we have the opportunity to de facto end the Trump presidency in less than 18 months. That's what's at stake, and that's why we're putting a stake in the ground. We're not drawing lines to draw lines. We're holding the line on democracy, on the rule of law, co-equal branches of government, popular sovereignty. That's what this is about.
Did you invite Texas Democrats who are breaking quorum to come to California?
They were told we would support them in any way, and I was with them, as you know, last week at the governor's mansion.
Governor, separately from what you're doing here in California, are you planning on making any investments in Texas to stop the maps?
Well, we're going to do what we can to resource and support them, but our focus is here on California.
Should Californians be prepared to go to the polls in November for a special election?
It's cause and effect. It's triggered on the basis of what occurs or doesn't occur in Texas. I hope they do the right thing. And if they do the right thing, then there'll be no cause for us to have to move forward. But again, we're working with the legislature on a trigger that if they do move forward, California will not sit by idly and watch this democracy waste away. We'll fight fire with fire, we'll assert ourselves, and we'll punch above our weight, and it will have profound impacts on the national outcome, not just here in the state of California. I appreciate it's already led to some members of our delegation now calling for independent redistricting. That's an encouraging sign. So already, perhaps people are waking up to the reality of California entering into this conversation. We're not a small state. Again, we punch above our weight. It will have profound national implications if we move forward. And I'm confident if we move forward, the people of this great state will support this effort.
If California moves forward with a special election for this mid-decade redistricting effort,
Mayor of San Francisco supporting the efforts at the state level. Very proud of Governor Schwarzenegger's leadership. Proud of those that supported that effort. I was one of the few elected Democrats at the time that publicly stated my support for the independent redistricting. So absolutely, I support a national framework. In fact, the work we're advancing with the legislature does just that. It reinforces the framework, the policy, through a constitutional framework to advance as policy support for national independent redistricting commission. That's absolutely the goal. I'm appreciative that this member of Congress is waking up to the realities of what has occurred in Texas. I haven't heard much from him as it relates to the condemnation of their efforts, but I'm grateful that he recognizes the importance of a national framework.
Sorry, just to be clear, his legislation prohibits a mid-decade redraw. Is that something that you'd be okay with? That way you wouldn't...
Well, this whole thing is in response to. And in many ways, it's the spirit, and I appreciate your question, and I'll build off it. It's the spirit of the special session, this special session, as it relates to putting ourselves in a position to respond to the assault on the rule of law and our democratic principles, principles of federalism, 10th Amendment, that so often are brought to bear in light with the litigation that we've advanced. The proposal that we're advancing with the legislature has a trigger. Only if they move forward to dismantling the protocols that are well established would the state of California move forward in kind, fighting, yes, fire with fire. So in that light, I believe there's consistency.
Hi, Governor. Monica Madden, ABC 7 News. Last night, California state Democrats and congressional Democrats had a meeting to discuss this ongoing redistricting plan, and
we want to do it in the most transparent way. That's a process that will unfold over the course of the next few weeks, but we want to see the maps on the ballot. I want folks to know what they're voting on. That's what separates what we're doing from what others are doing. So we want to give those maps. We want to make sure those maps are on the ballot. We want to encourage national redistricting, which is critical. I've long supported national redistricting. I appreciate Common Cause and their work in this space. It should be done in Ohio. It should be done in Florida. It should be done elsewhere. I appreciate Governor Schwarzenegger's leadership in this space. I was proud to support those efforts in the past as a mayor at the time, lieutenant governor, working against the repeal of some of those independent redistricting efforts. That's why we want to continue to keep the Independent Redistricting Commission, but recognizing that we cannot unilaterally disarm in this existential moment in terms of these congressional maps in 26, 28, and 30, but to maintain its status beyond 30 into 3032, and to codify our intent to continue to promote a national independent redistricting model. The idea that the President of the United States says he's entitled to 5 seats should sicken everybody. There's nothing normal about that, and anyone who says it's not surprising is normalizing it. That's shocking. He's entitled to it?
You're concerned about the low poll numbers, 52% support.
I'm confident we'll get it when people know what it is and what it's not. I think and at the end of the day, they understand what's at stake. I mean, we can just sit on the sidelines. We can watch him roll back. I mean, they're not stopping with 5 in Texas. They're in Indiana. They're going to all these other states. We can sit there and we can be, stewards of, intellectual good government and just watch it all go away. If he's entitled to these votes, what's he going to be entitled to in 2 years? He's apparently entitled to the National Guard, federalizing the National Guard to do what? Doesn't like the fact there's an election because, I mean, look at these tariffs. They're done under the completely illegal auspices of an Economic Emergency Powers Act based on, former leader in Brazil's incarceration. So that's under the Economic Emergency Powers Act. That Bolsonaro's incarceration, house arrest, should lead to a 50% tariff. And this is I appreciate you asking about Alcatraz, and I'm glad you're following on all these other remarkable things that are happening in this country. I actually have to be more cautious about what I say because sometimes you pick it up. Why are you wearing a Pittsburgh hat? What's going on with you, Joe? Okay, no, we love Najee Harris. He's a Bay Area kid, the running back. Najee's the best. Well, no, you didn't necessarily have the line, okay? Joe, we're going to get into this, really? You watch this year. It's a much better team, despite that quarterback. Anyone else? That's up there with Coke Zero or whatever the new Coke is. I mean, that's not even worthy of your time. Thank you, guys. Americans still hold dear.
Everyone asked me about the $500 million of research grants that the president's taken from UCLA.
Yeah.
Should UC strike a deal to get that money back? And what are your involvement there?
I want to be careful here, but with all due respect, and I don't mean to diminish, but we're not Brown, we're not Columbia, and I'm not going to be governor if we act like that. Period, full stop. I will fight like hell to make sure that doesn't happen. There's principles, there's right and wrong, and we'll do the right thing. And what President Trump is doing is wrong, and everybody knows it. His biggest supporters know it. And you are not just, this is the finest system of higher education anyone in the world. It's the reason we're having this conversation. It's the reason we dominate in every critical area. It's the reason we have more scientists, engineers, more Nobel laureates, more patents than any other jurisdiction on planet Earth. It is because of the system of higher education. It's that conveyor belt for talent defines the best of this country. The reason our national defense and national security is as strong as it is the partnerships and the funding that comes through those grants. So this is about our competitiveness. It's about the fate and future of this country. It's about our sovereignty. It's about so much more than the temperament of an aggrieved individual who happens to currently be President of the United States.
Do you involve those conversations at all about possibly negotiating with them?
They'll do the right thing. I have the confidence, and I'll do everything in my power to encourage them to do the right thing and not to become another law firm that bends on their knees, another company that sells their soul, or another institution that takes a shortcut and takes the easy wrong for other institutions that have followed a different path.
Governor, given the timeline that you've mentioned on the special election, it sounds like the California legislature will have 5 days to basically set the election. When will the maps be released to give the public ample time to at least review them?
Well, that's a question for all of our folks here, but bottom line, it's going to be in their ballot box. It's going to be on their ballot. So it's about as transparent as it gets. I have not been privy to the map. I'm mapping out a strategy to make this successful. I have not looked at any maps I told you that yesterday, told you that last week, and that continues to be the case today. As it relates to that map and that process that's going through. By the way, it's very transparent because these are familiar maps. The independent redistricting has taken over 10,000 hours of testimony and public comment over the years, and they've bandied about many of these maps that have been seen before. So it's a very familiar process. It's not a very complicated process. It may appear to be, but it's not. But the process we want to make very transparent, and that's the idea of putting the maps on the ballot. And that was something for me was a red line. And it's something that I think is foundational in terms of this effort.
So does it not matter what people think that in the 5 days that the legislature has the time? I mean, this is for really legislative leaders. Is 5 days an adequate enough time for the public to review what you will present to them on the ballot?
So I can tell you this, Ashley, that maps we anticipate will be available next week. Our work began with the work that was already done, as the governor just mentioned, by our independent redistricting commission. Once these maps are released, voters will have the opportunity to digest these maps, review them for weeks and months leading to this election. If there is another state with a more transparent process where voters will get the ultimate say in these new maps, please let me know what it is, or if there's a state doing it, because we are going above and beyond to ensure that, one, we are protecting the Voting Rights Act, and that we are sending the voices of our most vulnerable to Washington, D.C. But when it comes to the maps, we anticipate these maps to be available next week.
Governor.
Answer any questions.
You do not want UCLA to settle with the Trump administration. Are you taking any actions to fight?
Yeah, we'll sue. I mean, this is a separate topic, but it's not necessarily disconnected from this topic. Donald Trump today is trying to silence academic freedom. He's attacking one of the most important public institutions in the United States of America, one of the finest institutions of higher learning in the world, one of the great research institutions in this country, one of the reasons California is the tentpole of the U.S. economy, one of the reasons we have more scientists, engineers, more Nobel laureates than any other state in this nation. He has threatened us through extortion with $1 billion fine unless we do his bidding. So as long as I'm governor, I will stand tall and push back against that. And I believe every member of California legislature feels the same way. We will not be complicit in this kind of attack on academic freedom on this extraordinary public institution. We are not like some of those other institutions that have followed a different path.
Federal court struck down 2 of the marquee deepfake laws that signed last year regarding elections. I'm curious if you want to see those appealed, and also how you see that kind of legislation going forward this session.
Well, I'm worried about all that. I'm worried about election integrity, not just because of what Donald Trump's trying to do to, find more representatives by doing these redistricting schemes, but I'm worried. There's someone by the name of Gavin Newsom that speaks fluent Spanish, who has no wrinkles and is quite impressive. That's on my feed. Of course, he doesn't exist. He's an AI bot of me. You'd have a hell of a hard time knowing that unless you took a second look. That's today. Imagine in a few months. Imagine the ability to shapeshift perception in real time to weaponize that. So I'm very concerned about those bills being thrown out. I'm mindful that we have to increase the number of tries, meaning let's get it right based on sort of a constitutional, based on constitutional concerns or constraints. And I'm deeply mindful of our relationship to that truth and trust as it relates to being a regulatory body in California. As it relates to litigation, that's a different process which we engage with our legal counsel. I'll have a chance to look. As you know, we've not only filed 37 new lawsuits against Trump administration just since January, so many of these cases that have been filed against us, every week we have a chance to review them. So I'd have to look at the specifics of the adjudication of that. Well, it's hard to calculate right now. I mean, the MOU itself, it's not an immediate savings. It's the promise and promotion of different types of investments that don't necessarily have a huge cost driver. As it relates now to the Gen AI partnerships, it's not just about efficiency and savings. It's about doing things we couldn't do before. It's quite literally changing the paradigm of a work stream. It's about connecting dots that we didn't even know existed and could be connected. And that's what's so exciting about this. It's about real breakthrough. And that's why we started this breakthrough group as well. It's part and parcel of this larger innovation ecosystem that we're creating in partnership with the state. We've got some of the best and brightest minds from the Valley in the spirit not of Doge, quite the contrary, but in the spirit of Rego and what was done in the past under different administrations, particularly the work that Al Gore did, to work with our state workforce, engage them to find new work streams, new work styles, arrangements, to find not just efficiencies, but to break out the paradigm of expectations, to meet people where they are, give taxpayers more choice, more voice, not just find savings and efficiencies, but radically change the customer experience. What's that? Well, we've put out, as you know, and you've been kind enough to even join us in the Silicon Valley, Central Valley here. We've put out numerics in the past, multi-billion-dollar slides we've shown you in terms of those savings. As it relates to the specific Gen AI contracts, too early to assess those, specific to those. But the broader reinvent government stuff, billions and billions of dollars of savings.
Last question.
For the governor, if California redraws districts for Democrats to try to fix seats, that would only cancel out what Texas is doing, but Republican-led states, including Florida, Ohio, Missouri, and Indiana, will or are considering redrawing their own lines, and Democrats don't control enough states or have enough districts to pick up to counter that. So, given that math, why go through with trying to bypass the independent district?
Well, these guys are ruthless on the other side, so I concur. That said, we can control what we can control. It's not what happens, it's what we do in response to what happens. Here's what we can do in response. There's other states that can act not dissimilarly to California, but none can act, I guess, with the scale and scope that we can. So that would be my response. It's always the right thing to do the right thing. It's always the right time to do the right thing. And our response is what we can control, and we can encourage others through the power of emulation to consider the approach that we've taken based upon their unique circumstances. Most states don't have independent redistricting. Many states have supermajorities in their legislature. There are a number of other states, as you know, that are considering democratically led states and not just Republican-led states that are considering similar actions, but we're not going to unilaterally disarm. We're not going to allow them to roll us over, and at least we will have the power of expressing ourselves very powerfully that everything they did in Texas, all the fire and fury, signified nothing. That we neutralized it. We nullified that. We don't move unless they move. This is triggered. They drew first blood. We're responding to this action. And this is how we choose to respond, and I hope other governors and other leaders across the country do the same.
Last question. In the hypothetical, if it is triggered and voters do not approve it, is there a backup plan? Is there a plan B if Texas moves?
I think the voters will approve it. I think the voters understand what's at stake. Look, I'm not naive. We live in the most un-Trump state in America. And I think people understand, boy, do they understand, intimately understand what's at stake with Donald Trump. What more evidence you need today, a couple days ago, with a Penske truck where people just jumped out, racially profiling people. Look at what just happened at UCLA. What more evidence do we need? And so I think I have all the confidence in the world, the wisdom of the voters of this great state. And I'm not just talking about Democrats. I'm not just talking about independents. We believe in independent redistricting. That will be on the ballot. We believe it should be nationalized. That will be on the ballot. We have the opportunity to send a message enough, and I believe Republicans, not just Democrats and independents, will meet that call, and we will overwhelmingly support this change.
Thank you. We're out of time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, President Trump, it's time to stand down. It's time to make another phone call to Greg Abbott. This time, instead of calling him and telling him you're quote unquote entitled to 5 congressional seats, it's time to tell him to stand down. It's time to recognize that democracy is at risk. It's time to, dare I say, do the right thing. Actually see how that feels for you, doing the right thing. If you don't, California will neutralize anything you do in the state of Texas. California will continue to punch above its weight. We believe in democracy. We believe in the enduring values of our founding fathers. 249 years. We're not going to sit back passively. We're not going to sit back and watch you light democracy on fire. We will fight fire with fire.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, guys, for being here. Thank you.
When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win.
Thank you. Thank all of you in the spirit of that African proverb that Senator Padilla was referencing. You want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. And I look back at this audience, and I look at all of you united in this cause, and I'm reminded where we are at this precious moment in time. We are in Los Angeles. The most diverse city in the most diverse county, in the most diverse state, in the world's most diverse democracy. And I've long believed that the world looks to us, to all of you, to see that it's possible to live together and advance together and prosper together across every conceivable and imaginable difference. What makes LA great, what makes California great, and what makes the United States of America great is that at our best, we don't tolerate our diversity, we celebrate our diversity. And it's a point of pride because we're all in this together. Where are we? At Democracy Center. And right outside, at this exact moment, are dozens and dozens of ICE agents. Donald Trump, you think it's coincidental? No. Donald Trump and his minions, Tom Homan, tough guy, clearly decided, coincidentally or not, that this was a location to advance ICE arrests. Indiscriminate? Perhaps. We'll find out later. It was certainly indiscriminate when a 15-year-old disabled boy had a gun put to his head in Los Angeles trying to go to school just a few days ago. I met with it.
We were out of time.
Can you react to what's going on with those posts on X that are clearly trolling the president? What? Can you just talk about that? Is that like a strategy?
I don't know. I hope it's a wake-up call to the President of the United States. I'm sort of following his example. If you've got issues with what I'm putting out, you sure as hell should have concerns about what he's putting out as president. So to the extent it's gotten some attention, I'm pleased. But I think the deeper question is, how have we allowed the normalization of his tweets through social posts over the course of the last many years to go without similar scrutiny and notice?
Governor, does the trigger go into place if any Republican state does this?
Yes.
And are you confident that you have all the votes in the legislature and this is going to pass?
Well, I have the confidence of legislative leadership. A number of them are assembled here today, including the Speaker and the Pro Tem that were at a press conference last week, and they have confidence in their caucuses. We've been working closely with the caucuses in both houses for some time, and we believe we'll have the 2/3 to allow the people to decide for themselves. He's a failed president. Who else sends ICE same time, having a conversation like this. Someone who's weak, someone who's broken, someone whose weakness is masquerading as strength. The most unpopular president in modern history, an economy that's collapsing all around him. You saw the new wholesale prices going up almost a full percentage point today. Inflation is going up. Job creation is going down. He's trying to rewrite history, Smithsonian, censoring historical facts. And in the spirit of what Adam Schiff said, he's trying to put America in reverse on voting rights, civil rights, LGBTQ rights, on women's rights. He wants to bring us back to a pre-1960s world. That's what this is all about. It's about power. And I want to end on this. And we are about to give power back to the people. Well, I think it's pretty sick and pathetic. And it should set everything you need to know, the setting that we're under. That they chose the time, manner, and place to send their district director outside right when we're about to have this press conference. It said everything you know about Donald Trump's America. And that was top down. You know that for a fact. They'll deny it, I'm sure. Maybe they won't deny it. It said everything you know about the authoritarian tendencies of the President of the United States. I said it a moment ago, wake up, America. Wake up. You will not have a country if he rigs this election. You will have a president who will be running for a third term. Mark my word. I wasn't exaggerating when I said that I received in the mail a Trump 2028 hat from one of his biggest supporters. These guys are not screwing around. The rules do not apply to him. The most corrupt president in history. He doesn't believe in free enterprise, crony capitalism. He is wrecking this country, wrecking the economy. He's a lawless president. Wake up, America. Wake up to what's going on.
Governor, there was an ice.
Spoken with Governor Schwarzenegger about your proposal?
I had a chance to dialogue with the governor, as you know, as someone that opposed very publicly attempts to roll back independent redistricting, that voted for them in the first place. I share his vision, and I've made that clear publicly, and I've made that clear to him privately, and that's why it was important to talk to him specifically about the fact that we're affirming our independent commission, and we're calling for a national independent commission as well. Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To all of the leaders that are assembled here today, thank you for an outstanding job. Thank you for your faith and devotion to this larger cause, democracy, that I think should unite all of us, regardless of our political party and political stripes. Let me just briefly reinforce, because I'm eager to sign a bill that no other governor in U.S. history has ever signed, a bill that will put the maps in front of the voters. We'll be the first state in U.S. history to, in the most democratic way, submit to the people of our state the ability to determine their own maps. That simply has not been done. But I want to first just briefly back up and pick up a little bit on what the Speaker and the Pro Tem said, and just remind everybody what they reminded you, that need to be reminded, all of us again, of how we got here. We got here because the President of the United States is struggling. We got here because the President of the United States is one of the most unpopular presidents in U.S. history. We got here because he recognizes that he will lose the election. Congress will go back into the hands of the Democratic Party next November. We got here because of his failed policies. Those are being exposed hour by hour, reinforced today by Walmart announcing they'll be raising prices because of the tax increases, because of the tariffs. Reminded every day by a slowing economy, growing mistrust, distrust all across this nation, across the board. He is failing. He recognized that, and that's why he made a phone call to Greg Abbott asking for 5 seats. Can't win by playing by traditional sets of rules. He plays by no rules. I remind you all the time, it's not the rule of law, it's the rule of Don. And we're standing up to that. We're responding to that. They fired the first shot, Texas. We wouldn't be here had Texas not done what they just did. Donald Trump didn't do what he just did. He went so far as to follow up and say that he didn't just want those 5 seats. He said he's, quote unquote, entitled to those 5 seats. Just pause and reflect on that. Everything should have just stopped there. President of the United States claiming he's entitled to 5 seats. That should put chills up your spine. Every Republican, not just Democrat and Independent, every American. Those enduring values that we celebrate, just celebrated 249 years, the best of the Roman Republic, Greek democracy, the rule of law, co-equal branches of government, popular sovereignty. What we'll celebrate, will we? Next year, the 250th anniversary. Masked men at the site of the Japanese were interned and bussed in Little Tokyo last week in Los Angeles, were sent right there in front of the Democracy Center as we kicked off this effort. That's a preview of things to come all across the United States of America. Mark my word, just as we let folks know what was going to happen in other cities, what is happening in Washington, D.C., we said 2 months ago, Los Angeles is a preview of things to come with the federalization of the National Guard, with the militarization of the streets of America. And I'll remind you, Donald Trump never sent the military, active duty military, in his first term or now even his second term, anywhere overseas. He sent them to a United States city. They remain federalized National Guard, interestingly, through Election Day. $175 billion in the bill that was just signed to reinforce the ranks of ICE, Homeland Security, for what is increasingly becoming self-evident to anyone with eyes wide open and any level of objectivity, a private army for Donald Trump. Owing an oath only to him, not the Constitution of the United States. You just heard from the Speaker that vote-in-mail ballots are being threatened by the President of the United States. 80% of Californians, no coincidence, 80% submitted their ballots in the last election, 86% in 2022, 88% in 2020. He's trying to rig the election. He's trying to set up the conditions where he can claim that the elections were not won fair and square. Open your eyes to what is going on in the United States of America in 2025. That's what this is about. We're responding what occurred in Texas. We're neutralizing what occurred, and we're giving the American people a fair chance. Because when all things are equal, and we're all playing by the same set of rules, there's no question that the Republican Party will be the minority party in the House of Representatives next year. We'll be transitioning, and I'll close, from this process that has unfolded over the course of the last few weeks to the campaign. After I sign these two pieces of legislation establishing a special session and the maps, I also will be signing a proclamation on November 4th, the people of the state of California, in a transparent and, as Speaker and Pro Tem said, temporary and democratic way, will have the opportunity to determine their fate and our collective future. And I couldn't be more proud, again, of the extraordinary leaders that are standing up for the rule of law, are standing up for the principles and those enduring values of our founding fathers. Thank you for getting us to this point. We have a lot more work to do to get this done in November 4th. Here, that you matter and we care. And to the extent that distinguishes our approach to the current administration, so be it.
Thank you. And guess what? Also in Denmark, people are looking very closely about what is happening here politically. And they are always asking me, who is actually, lead of the resistance against Trump in the United States? So I have to ask you the question, will you be the lead Democrat candidate to run against Trump and his supporters?
I don't know. If you've been watching my Twitter feed, doing what I can.
Governor,
Governor, Lauren Thomas with CBS News Bay Area, thank you for your time. Also on redistricting, recent polling has shown that a majority of voters in the state are not in support of this ballot measure, including one out this morning by our neighbors over at UC Berkeley. We're also starting to see a lot of spending on opposition mailers on this. I myself received one in the mail just yesterday. So what is your confidence level that this ballot measure is going to get across the finish line, and what kind of support do you think it really needs to accomplish that?
Well, we've had overwhelming support, including former President Barack Obama. It's united the Democratic Party. Independents, I think, broadly recognize what's at stake. And so we put a stake in the ground. We're giving the people the opportunity to decide. I have all the confidence in the world that we're going to succeed. The more people are made aware of what this is, the more likely they are to support it. As it relates to the opposition, it was just predictable. It was very predictable. You have Trump-aligned, Trump-backed forces that are going to spend upwards of $100 million to defeat this initiative. They want to rig the election. Donald Trump knows he will lose the midterms. He knows he'll lose next November. Why else do you call a governor of a red state and say you're, quote unquote, entitled to 5 seats? He did his bidding. He's not just trying to rig things in Texas. He's doing it in Indiana. He's doing it in Missouri. And he'll do it in Florida. We responded to what occurred. And I think the people of this state recognize what's at stake. And we're giving them that opportunity in a transparent way. And I believe we'll be successful this November. Thank you.
Hi, Governor. Thanks for having us. Monica Madden, ABC 7 News. A lot of alluding to the commander-in-chief. Obviously, one way you're trying to rein in some of his power is through the redistricting ballot measure. Question for you, though. We're seeing a lot of Republican resistance from that already, including former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, Congressman Kiley with his bill in Congress. Have you spoken to the former governor as he tries to become the gerrymandering terminator? And have you made contact with President Trump? Is there a possibility that we could get a national ceasefire on all of the gerrymandering efforts?
Well, the last time I talked to Donald Trump, he nationalized, forgive me, he federalized the National Guard. So I haven't had that opportunity. He militarized the streets of a great American city in Los Angeles. We said at the time it was a preview of things to come. What more evidence do you need than what's happening in Washington, D.C.? As it relates to the former governor, who's a friend and a colleague of sorts, I met with him for an hour and a half last week, went down and visited him at his home. We had a fantastic conversation. And we share many of the same values. We certainly share many of the same concerns about the current occupant in the White House. Very proud of the legislature for moving quickly. We have now a special election on November 4th. We're looking forward to the voters doing something the voters have never been tasked to do in any time in U.S. history, in the most transparent and democratic way, making a determination for themselves what maps are appropriate in redistricting. That is in stark contrast to what happened in Texas, where those maps were drawn at Mar-a-Lago. And so our approach is very different. It's temporary, it's transparent, and it's democratic.
So it was agree to disagree with Governor Schwarzenegger?
We had more areas of agreement than disagreement.
Thank you.
Question and answers.
Yes, thank you. Lotte Mejlhed, TV2 Denmark. For you, Mr. Governor, you are saying in a statement, actually, by signing this statement,
yes,
that you want to show the world that California is a stable, reliable partner, no matter who is in the White House. Yeah. In which way do you want to show the Danish people that you are different from Trump? A Trump that has actually said that he would like to take over part of the Danish kingdom, Greenland. So how would you, by signing this agreement, show the Danish people that you want a different way?
Well, I can only establish the California way, representing, stay with more scientists, engineers, more researchers, more Nobel laureates. I would argue one of the finest systems of public higher education anywhere in the world. A state, as I said, that practices pluralism. State that has all kinds of struggles, all kinds of challenges. We recognize that. But a state of mind is about an open hand, not a closed fist. It's about expressing respect and appreciation. We all share the same short moment in life, and there's grace in that. And so our approach is a little different from that perspective. I think it's because of our values that we continue to excel. There's not an economy in the United States of America that has any industry larger than the state of California. Forestry, jobs, even hunting, agriculture. In every key industry. The minister and I had the privilege of talking about Salesforce. When I was mayor, proving how long ago it was, the cloud was still in the sky. Apps were things you filled out to get into college. Facebook didn't even exist. LinkedIn was a prison. 5G was a parking space. You get the point. World is changing. And so our mindset is around inclusivity. Our mindset is around encouraging people from all over the world to feel like they belong, they're seen, they're heard. It's an economic strategy. And I feel like all those values are challenged at the moment. And so we just want folks to know we're many parts of the United States of America, but one body. I say this, red states, blue states, when one part suffers, we all suffer. And so we're all in this together, and I want to make that case to you, your country, to the businesses that are here, that you matter and we care. And to the extent that distinguishes our approach to the current administration, so be it.
Thank you. And guess what? Also in Denmark, people are looking very closely about what is happening here politically. And they are always asking me, who is actually, lead of the resistance against Trump in the United States? So I have to ask you the question: will you be the lead Democrat candidate to run against Trump and his supporters?
I don't know if you've been watching my Twitter feed. Doing what I can. Thank you.
Hi, Governor. Thanks for having us. Monica Madden, ABC 7 News. A lot of alluding to the commander-in-chief. Obviously, one way you're trying to rein in some of his power is through the redistricting ballot measure. Question for you, though. We're seeing a lot of Republican resistance from that already, including former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, Congressman Kiley with his bill in Congress. Have you spoken to the former governor as he tries to become the gerrymandering terminator? And have you made contact with President Trump? Is there a possibility that we could get a national ceasefire on all of the gerrymandering efforts?
Well, the last time I talked to Donald Trump, he nationalized, forgive me, he federalized the National Guard. So I haven't had that opportunity. He militarized the streets of a great American city in Los Angeles. We said at the time it was a preview of things to come. What more evidence do you need than what's happening in Washington, D.C.? As it relates to the former governor, who's a friend and a colleague of sorts, I met with him for an hour and a half last week, went down and visited him at his home. We had a fantastic conversation. And we share many of the same values. We certainly share many of the same concerns about the current occupant in the White House. Very proud of the legislature for moving quickly. We have now a special election on November 4th. We're looking forward to the voters doing something the voters have never been tasked to do in any time in U.S. history, in the most transparent and democratic way, making a determination for themselves what maps are appropriate in redistricting. That is in stark contrast to what happened in Texas, where those maps were drawn at Mar-a-Lago. And so our approach is very different. It's temporary, it's transparent, and it's democratic.
So it was agree to disagree with Governor Schwarzenegger?
We had more areas of agreement than disagreement.
Thank you.
Governor Lauren Thomas of CBS News Bay Area, thank you for your time. Also on redistricting, recent polling has shown that a majority of voters in the state are not in support of this ballot measure, including one out this morning by our neighbors over at UC Berkeley. We're also starting to see a lot of spending on opposition mailers on this. I myself received one in the mail just yesterday. So what is your confidence level that this ballot measure is going to get across the finish line, and what kind of support do you think it really needs to accomplish that?
Well, we've had overwhelming support, including former President Barack Obama. It's united the Democratic Party. Independents, I think, broadly recognize what's at stake. And so we put a stake in the ground. We're giving the people the opportunity to decide. I have all the confidence in the world that we're going to succeed. The more people are made aware of what this is, the more likely they are to support it. As it relates to the opposition, it was predictable. It was very predictable. You have Trump-aligned, Trump-backed forces that are going to spend upwards of $100 million to defeat this initiative. They want to rig the election. Donald Trump knows he will lose the midterms. He knows he'll lose next November. Why else do you call a governor of a red state and say you're, quote unquote, entitled to 5 seats? He did his bidding. He's not just trying to rig things in Texas. He's doing it in Indiana. He's doing it in Missouri. And he'll do it in Florida. We responded to what occurred. And I think the people of this state recognize what's at stake, and we're giving them that opportunity in a transparent way, and I believe we'll be successful this November. Mr. Minister, I have a question for you. No, I just once again thank everybody for being here, and thank you for the spirit that brings you here as well. And Mr. Minister, I look forward to I did get an invitation, and I think I'm the only one in this room that hasn't had the privilege of being in Denmark, and I'm going to take advantage of your cell phone and make sure I see you when I arrive. And I'm told August, is it not? Best month. Don't go in November. August it is. Yeah, I need to be here for the election in November. Thank you very much.
Today are kind of contradictory. On the one hand, you're mocking Trump's deployments and, you know, highlighting the crime rates in red states that you say are higher, and at the same time, we're here because you're surging law enforcement across the state. So, do you believe that crime is a problem in California or not?
Well, sort of a curious question. I made the entire point that crime's an issue and we want to tackle it, and we continue to do more in that space, and we announced and highlighted some of the expansion. What is not contradictory, respectfully, is that we're doing it in partnership with our local communities. We did it in partnership with the Biden administration prior. We're not talking about the nationalization, the militarization of the Guard and militarizing United States cities. So quite the contrary.
Thank you, everyone.
Trafficking, is that, I mean, not to get specific, but trafficking in this area.
Governor, is this in response to President Trump talking about, or is it to prevent the possibility? When President Trump talks about deploying more National Guard troops to more cities, is this part of a response or to prevent that from happening?
Well, I think you can go back to your own reporting. We've been pretty consistent with these kinds of announcements. We haven't necessarily invited you in to the horseshoe here to announce them. We've done it by paper. We do it every week. We're highlighting these things. I've had probably 9 or 10 press conferences on this topic over the course of the last few years. So we're not reacting, responding to anything. Quite the contrary. With one caveat, the community wants to see more, and we are trying to be responsive to the people we serve. As it relates to the president in particular, he's doing things to people, not with people. It's a point of profound and consequential contrast. He's de facto militarizing American cities. That's why I led with the Breyer decision. We're waiting for the outcome of that. Could have profound implications in terms of his authority to militarize American cities. Again, certainly here in California, impacts, though, will be discussed and debated if he moves in our direction across the United States. But I should note, just on that, if he is to invest in crime suppression, I hope the President of the United States would look at the facts. Just consider Speaker Johnson's state and district. Just look at the murder rate. That's nearly 4 times higher than Californians in Louisiana. This is Speaker Johnson, 4x higher. I'm just offering, again, you've not seen this on Fox News, so President may not be familiar with these facts. So I want to present some facts to the President of the United States, and imagine this is alarming to the President to learn these facts, particularly Speaker Johnson, who's been such a strong partner and ally in these efforts. So the carnage in Louisiana is well defined. Of course, Mississippi leads the nation as the #1 murder state in America. Imagine this in particular may resonate with the President of the United States. It's got a murder rate, it's 180%. 180% higher than Los Angeles. It's interesting. LA has more people. These are all per capita numbers. More people than Los Angeles. Perhaps the president could deploy the National Guard in every corner of Mississippi. It's the murder rate's out of control there. Carnage. And governor may want to make that phone call. Again, if they care about the issues of crime and violence. I would note St. Louis murder rate is 190% larger than Oakland. I can go on. We could talk about the carnage in Arkansas, again, one of the top 10 murder states in America, 2.6 times greater than San Francisco. Again, these are just not just observations. They're stone-cold facts. And the fact remains, if the president is sincere about the issue of crime and violence, there's no question in my mind that he'll likely be sending the troops into Louisiana and Mississippi to address the unconscionable wave of violence that continues to plague those states.
Governor, you talked about putting the mirror up to the Trump administration. I'm not necessarily pointing to this, but in social media with the Patriot Shop that you've established, I mean, is this a way still, though, to sort of do that? Because
we've been at this, as you know. We've been to all these events for months and months, and I think we kicked this off with the AG, a few years back in San Jose. We were very vocal about the legislature moving on that legislative package a year plus ago. So I think it's a continuation of that. But I think it is important to highlight the National Guard issue. I thought it was the right question. And it's a question on all our minds. Is this America? Are we losing our country? Have we lost grip with reality? The idea that the military can be out there in every street corner. In the United States of America, that people that don't look like me, the black and brown community, quite literally feeling like they're racially profiled, scared to death to walk their dogs or go to the grocery store. Even in some cases, now you're hearing more and more about it, going to the hospital to get emergency care, let alone preventative care. For that matter, even going to school or a graduation we saw last year, funerals, weddings, events. So, no, I think it's important to build on what we're doing, yes, to extend that narrative, to expand our successful programs, to acknowledge we have work to do, not suggesting otherwise, but also acknowledge that this country needs to wake up to what's going on, and not just the authoritarian tendencies, but the authoritarian actions by this president. This cannot be normalized. And yes, so I'm highlighting some just blatant hypocrisy. Yes, we're putting a mirror up to the lunacy that is Trump's tweets and his grift. The madness that is someone that would dress up as the Pope and tweet that out, or put his face up there on Mount Rushmore in a Superman costume. President of the United States. So I do think it's important to put that mirror, that lens back, and have everyone reflect on it and say, well, have we accepted this as normal? Why aren't we calling this out more clearly? So extension of what we're doing, but also, yes, highlighting some of that.
We know that he often,
What then ensued was the use of tear gas, flashbang grenades, rubber bullets, federal agents detaining people and undermining their due process rights. Donald Trump, without consulting California law enforcement leaders, commandeered 2,000 of our state's National Guard members to deploy on our streets, illegally and for no reason. This brazen abuse of power by a sitting president inflamed a combustible situation, putting our people, our officers, and even our National Guard at risk. That's when the downward spiral began. He doubled down on his dangerous National Guard deployment by fanning the flames even harder. And the president, he did it on purpose.
You opened your podcast with Charlie Kirk by telling him how much your son idolized him.
Well, overstated, but I appreciate the sentiment.
Okay. Why don't you state it then? How much your son
Recognized him. Yeah.
enjoys him?
No, I said that he wanted to have a picture with Charlie because he was very familiar with him. And and so many young boys are. And it was a recognition of the why. Why was Charlie my first guest? Because I recognized his influence, not just in the last election, and how many young men and boys heard the bell and answered the bell in terms of organizing on campuses and supporting the dialogue and the organizational principles that Charlie Kirk was supporting and advancing. And I thought it was important to illuminate that and highlight that. But it was absolutely true that my son, like many kids his age, were not only familiar with Charlie Kirk, they're familiar with Andrew Tate, familiar with people like Jordan Peterson, very familiar with what's happening online and podcasts and what some have referred to, in some cases pejoratively, others in terms of illuminating this manosphere. And I think it's important to understand that. Parents need to understand that. But obviously Charlie Kirk was a master at not only the work he did online, but offline, and his capacity to organize and engage.
If I may, the question was just going to be like if you could talk about how you're processing Charlie Kirk's death with your son, whether it's been...
Well, he called me, and I don't know whose phone he was using, but he called me from school. He heard about it. So, and he said, everybody, Dad's talking about it. And he wanted to know, is he alive? Is he alive? And so it was very impactful. I asked all these young men just a moment ago upstairs, said, how many of you have heard of Charlie Kirk? Every single one of them. How were you processing? I asked them. And they said, it's been difficult, but it was universal condemnation of this horrific and unacceptable act, period, full stop. And it was interesting. I made that point to my son. I said, we just put out a statement to that effect, condemning this very, very clearly and very immediately. We didn't wait around tonally to figure that out. There's right and wrong. And that was the principle that I reinforced with him. But look, it's just a reminder of how many young people were impacted by this death in a pretty profound way, and continue to be impacted by the images they saw. And you can never unsee what you saw, and how that will impact these kids in this generation in a pretty profound way.
In there, you were talking about common ground and this issue of essentially young men being disregarded in society, which is something that you connected with Charlie Kirk over. And I wonder, just the timing of this announcement and Kirk's death, if there's any correlation in just how Kirk might be inspiring you at all, if he is.
No, I appreciate the question. I mean, I believe in civility. I believe in open hand, not a closed fist. That's why I had Charlie Kirk on my first podcast, and anyone can go and listen to that podcast. He did it in person. We not only had a civil conversation on camera, we had a civil conversation off camera that continued until just weeks ago, where our staffs were connecting and engaging in a very civil way, and I think we need more of that. That said, he'll stand his ground. We stood our ground on things we care deeply about and pushed back where we had, pretty strong disagreements. He had an approach and strategy and issues. We have our approach. But I just think at the end of the day, I said it inside a moment ago, divorce is not an option, period, full stop. We've got to live together across our differences. And there are a lot of differences in this state, this nation, for that matter, the world we're trying to build. And the only way we're going to reconcile those things is by listening to one another. And if you go to that podcast, I hope the one thing that you'll find is two people willing to listen to one another that have very strong points of view that don't necessarily always cross-pollinate, but one point of view I think we did share was love of our family, love of this country, deep, deep, deep love for our children, and hope for a better world. And so that's the spirit that I want to bring to the work that we're doing today. That's the spirit to which I think mentorship and volunteerism, I think that's the spirit that it advances. And it's a cause that should unite us all.
Just a follow-up, will his assassination change the way that you approach any campaigns? I know you're not campaigning here, but any campaign in the future, the Prop 50, I know, changed.
No,
around and find out, title, with the event that you're going to have.
Yeah, well, I don't know, because I'm the same guy that walked on the tarmac with Donald Trump. I'm the same guy that will pick up his phone call. I'm the same person that sat down, not just Charlie Kirk, with Steve Bannon, with the guy who created this space, language, borders, and culture, Michael Savage, back in the 90s. Was the dominant voice on talk radio, person that sat down with Newt Gingrich, who was one of the leaders of my recall. I'm that same person.
We have a student here who has a question.
I know, and I appreciate that. Under the federal program.
Governor, welcome back to San Francisco. Pivoting a little bit here, can you respond to some of the excerpts that have come out of the former vice president's book so far, including an excerpt recently this week that you didn't text her back after the president bowed out of the race, like some other accusations in the book?
Well, I don't know about accusations. I don't know if it's even an accusation. Having been engaged very directly with the vice president this last few weeks, as you know, on some high-profile issues that are important. But no, I haven't read it, and so it's hard to even opine about context and to even reflect on anything that's in the book.
Did you call her back after the president bowed out of the race?
Well, I mean, this is such a trivial, doesn't even go into describing how inconsequential my comments are about to be. You want to waste your time with this, we'll do it. I was up there hiking. There was an unknown number. Check the unknown number. Meanwhile, I was on text change trying to get in touch with the Biden administration because I was completely surprised that the president dropped out. And as you know, I was a surrogate and I was out on the campaign trail. And so I was trying to figure out what just happened. And then when I checked the unknown number, and that was Kamala, said, hey, hiking, we'll call you back. That exact same moment was working with my team to put out a statement to endorse her. I assume that's in the book as well, that hours later, the endorsement came out. So beyond that, pretty well established, including an event in San Francisco we did at the Fairmont for a few weeks later. What happened after that?
Governor, would be remiss to not ask about...
Answer any questions.
Governor, what's the argument for keeping high-speed rail a top recipient of GGRF funding through this?
Because we're on the other side. We're actually laying track. We're on the other side of all the environmental concerns. We're on the other side of all of the acquisitions. For years and years and years, 2,270, it's an actual number, 2,270 parcels had to be procured. Each one of those had a unique dynamic, a unique interest, litigation, lawfare, years and years and years to work through and to find and strike the right price and to find common ground. 2,270. 1,000 utility projects were completed. We have structures 50 large-scale structures that have been completely done, not just designed. All the environmental work is now complete, north and south. And the track is now about to be laid. And this is the part that we've been waiting for years and years and years. And to abandon it at this point would be absurd. And so the opportunity with this cap and trade to set aside that $1 billion, it's an actual numeric, not a percentage, gives the high-speed rail system the ability to do a lot of creative work in terms of financing and finding the private sector to support this project, which is supporting thousands and thousands of jobs. And unlike the President of the United States and unlike his administration that does not care about rural Americans, who uses rural Americans and over and over and over and over again betrays rural Americans in terms of his policies, we have their backs. Biggest beneficiaries, the first phase of the high-speed rail, are people that predominantly supported Donald Trump. But we don't play politics. We do what's right for working folks. And I'm very, very proud of that, and I'm proud of the fact the legislature recognized that as well.
Governor, PG&E has raised its rates by more than 40% over the last few years.
Governor, you know that the Supreme Court has given the administration wide authority when it comes to immigration. The Supremacy Clause says that federal law trumps state law. Talk about the legal justification for doing this, and are you concerned that the Supreme Court might strike this down?
Well, the Supremacy Clause doesn't give blanket immunity to state laws. Quite the contrary. I'll give you just as an aside an example. Federal employees have to abide by traffic rules in their respective states. The Supremacy Clause basically asserts that we cannot interfere in federal operations. Well, federal operations have been conducted for decades and decades without masks. It's never been necessary. It's a new construct conceived to terrorize our diverse communities, to instill fear and chaos. It's quite clear that that's the case. It's simply unnecessary. And then they manifest a justification that could be manifested in every category of society today. If doxing is a concern, then legislate the solution to those concerns. We have well-established guidelines in our penal code and civil code sections here in the state of California. Judges, I imagine, would not be immune from those concerns, certainly not elected officials, certainly not members of the media or celebrities or neighbors, for that matter. These are foundationless requirements that they have manufactured. Let me then back that up in a way that they haven't. There's an assertion that somehow there is exponential increase in assaults on officers, but they will not provide the data. They will not provide that information. All they've provided is misinformation and misdirection. One agency saying one thing, another agency saying something altogether different. Look at the data sets. They will not provide with transparency that information. I have great respect for law enforcement, great respect for the men and women that try to do the right thing, take their oath of office seriously, and want to assert themselves in a manner of dignity and grace. But those at Homeland Security, their director, Stephen Miller, those words do not represent their actions and what they're trying to impose in terms of their will all across this country, and that's why we felt this is necessary. So we're going to test the theory long-windedly.
Last question. Governor, it's a long way between here and January. Can you talk about why that no mask law won't go into effect?
Well, just 99.9% of the laws we sign go into effect in the next fiscal year. So just as the nature of the process to actually get this over the line and get this bill to my desk. And so it will give us the opportunity to make the case. And if there is a case as it relates to a court case, gives us the opportunity as well to organize a counter claim, and we'll see what happens. But we're certainly mindful that this is the first state in the country to do what we just did, and I expect other states will follow suit, as is often the case with California. The future happens here first. Where America's coming attraction, it's a point of pride and responsibility. We have to do more. We have to do better. We're constantly asking ourselves, how can we do more? How can we do better? And I think today we did more, and we are doing better. Thank you, guys.
Governor Newsom, what are you doing? This is Maria Hinojosa with Latino USA from New York, so I'm getting into the weather.
This is more. Today is a little more. New York. Yeah, I'm just saying. Just saying.
It's only 9 months in under President Trump. Can you tell us what you're expecting and what are you preparing to do for what might be coming?
Well, look, I mean, you saw it January 6th. He tried to break this country. He tried to light democracy on fire. He's trying to impose his will. He doesn't believe in the rule of law. He believes in the rule of dawn, period, full stop. Next year, we're going to celebrate, I hope, the enduring principles of our founding fathers, 250th anniversary of this great nation, co-equal branches of government, this notion of popular sovereignty, all of that is under threat. That's why we have the Election Rigging Response Act in the state of California, as he's quite literally trying to rig the next election. He's not just doing it in Texas, he's doing it in Missouri, Indiana, Florida. We'll see what happens in Utah and Ohio. We're pushing back. We're using our formal authority and we're using our moral authority in a state that can punch above its weight, in a state that's the 4th largest economy in the world, the size of 21 state populations combined. So we mean business. We're fighting fire with fire. We're not rolling over to this. I'm not going to watch this country destroyed in real time. 40+ lawsuits. And we're outperforming. We keep winning. And so we're going to continue to fight. We're not going to roll over. That's what today represents. And we're going to fight for all of us, for our diverse communities, and for those that feel like they can't even walk their dogs, can't even go to school, can't even show up at a graduation, are scared to death to go into a community clinic to prevent an illness. let alone go after they have an illness. This is a chill. This is chilling. This is serious. I walked into a restaurant the other day. Entire staff came out, started hugging me and crying. The hell is that? The United States of America. What he's doing to our diverse communities, what he's doing to the fabric of our society. So all of that is in our minds today as we push back. The impact of these policies all across this city, our state and nation are terrifying. It's like a dystopian sci-fi movie. Unmarked cars, people en masse, people quite literally disappearing, no due process, no rights in a democracy where we have rights. Immigrants have rights. And we have the right to stand up and push back. And that's what we're doing here today. This is a disgrace. This is an outrage, what we have allowed to happen in this country. And I could not be more proud of this legislature, the legislative authors, to the community demanding more from all of us at this moment to push back. I'll be signing a bill, the first in the nation, saying enough. To ICE, unmask. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? You're going to go out and you're going to do enforcement? Provide an ID. Tell us which agency you represent. Provide us basic information that all local law enforcement is required to provide. Have the decency not to threaten people as they go to school, to go out in the parking lots proximate to these schools to create chill, packed attendance. We talked to these kids. They were saying, one of you said, I've got friends, they don't go on the metro anymore. It's a public space. So your superintendent had the decency, foresight, and leadership to provide transportation. That's Trump's America. Hospitals. You talk about health infrastructure. You talk about community health. People scared to death to even access a community clinic for preventative medicine, worried that somehow they're going to be turned in, or someone without identification, looking like anyone else with a mask on, may just jump out of a car and they may disappear. So I want to thank the legislative leaders for asserting themselves.
What does anti-doxing legislation look like?
Well, there's a legislation that's been introduced federally in June, quite specific. Law Enforcement Anti-Doxing Act that was introduced, as well established online behavior and criteria as it relates to online behavior that's well established here in the state of California. That's already law. Enforce the law, legislate the solutions. But again, if you're going to go down that path, do judges then start getting masked? Do elected officials start masking themselves? Does anyone that's on the receiving end of modern day bullying as it relates to online activity? That's why we have laws. Enforce the laws. If the law is inadequate, change the law or amend the law or create a new law. And I have no problem supporting those efforts. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Thank you. Well, thank you, all of you, all the speakers, everybody that took the time to be here, everyone that inspired this legislation, this call to push back, to meet this moment, and to be accountable. And really the spirit, I think, of these 5 bills that I'll be signing here in a moment are about accountability. Accountability that is long overdue. But let me first try to set a scene. It's one very familiar to many of you, but not necessarily to some folks that may be watching from other parts of the country. We're here in Los Angeles, the most diverse city in the most diverse state, California, in the world's most diverse democracy. It is a point of pride. We are a majority-minority state, California. At our best, we don't tolerate that diversity. At our best, we celebrate that diversity. We're a universal state. 27% of Californians are foreign born. You heard the superintendent talk about all the mixed status families. Our status is unique in the United States of America. It's what makes California great. It's what makes America great. And it's under assault by this administration. There's a word that you've never heard uttered from the President of the United States' lips, certainly not Stephen Miller, and that's pluralism. We practice pluralism. It's a deep point of pride. Those values are under assault to a degree we could have never imagined. For those of you here in Los Angeles, you deeply absorb this, you deeply understand this. You saw your streets militarized. You saw the President of the United States, who in his first term never sent the military anywhere, not overseas, nowhere. In his second term, he sent the United States Marines, active duty Marines, to the city of Los Angeles. He federalized 4,000 of our National Guard. We said at the time it was a preview of things to come. Folks thought that was hyperbolic. They thought we were overstating it. Ask the folks in Washington, D.C. Ask the folks other states like Illinois and what's about to happen in Memphis. We announced just a few weeks ago that we were standing up and pushing back as it relates to the rigging of elections. We were at the Democracy Center in Little Tokyo, the sacred site where we were interning and busing the Japanese. That shameful part of our past. And what did the administration do? What did Stephen Miller do? What did Donald Trump do? They sent masked men to intimidate folks from walking in to that event. Masked men. Poor soul that happened to be in the area, delivery guy delivering strawberries, was detained because he just happened to be in the area. Collateral damage. Disappeared. These masked men had no identification. These masked men did not provide any information, name, badge number, hidden from accountability, any transparency, any oversight. That's Trump's America, but it is not the America we've grown up in. And so we're pushing back against this. For so many of you in Los Angeles, we talk about authoritarianism. Some think we're being hyperbolic. Depends the lens you see the world. Which set of eyes? For someone like me, I may not be experiencing it, but for many folks you see behind me, they have experienced it. There was a young man who was here as an advisor to the superintendent we just met with. He says, you don't need to touch the flame to feel the burn. The impact of these policies all across this city, our state, and nation are terrifying. It's like a dystopian sci-fi movie. Unmarked cars, people en masse, people quite literally disappearing, no due process, no rights in a democracy where we have rights. Immigrants have rights. And we have the right to stand up and push back. And that's what we're doing here today. This is a disgrace. This is an outrage, what we have allowed to happen in this country. And I could not be more proud of this legislature, the legislative authors, to the community demanding more from all of us at this moment to push back. I'll be signing a bill, the first in the nation, saying enough. ICE, unmask. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? If you're going to go out and you're going to do enforcement, provide an ID. Tell us which agency you represent. Provide us basic information that all local law enforcement is required to provide. Have the decency not to threaten people as they go to school, to go out in the parking lots proximate to these schools to create chill, packed attendance. We talked to these kids. They were saying, one of you said, I've got friends, they don't go on the metro anymore. It's a public space. So your superintendent had the decency, foresight, and leadership to provide transportation. That's Trump's America. Hospitals. You talk about health infrastructure. You talk about community health. People scared to death to even access a community clinic for preventative medicine, worried that somehow they're going to be turned in, or someone without identification, looking like anyone else with a mask on, may just jump out of a car and they may disappear. So I want to thank the legislative leaders for asserting themselves and providing me the privilege, the ability to sign these laws, pushing back at this moment. I thought Jon Stewart said it best. This is not about the pronoun police. This is about the secret police. We're not North Korea, Mr. President. We're not the Soviet Union. This is the United States of America. And I'm really proud of the state of California and our state of mind that we're pushing back against these authoritarian tendencies and actions of this administration. ICE is now the largest private police force in the United States of America. And I say private because increasingly it appears to many of us that they have sworn an oath to Donald Trump, not the Constitution. A private police force whose ranks are going to grow by some 10,000, dwarfing the FBI and DEA. Only comparable staffing and investments are military operations around the globe. That's what Congress, the supine leadership in Congress, provided, along with the supine members of the Supreme Court that have allowed racial profiling on the basis of accent, basis of location, and skin color. This is not America. And so we are pushing back firmly. We're pushing back using not just our formal authority, but perhaps the most important authority, and that's our moral authority. So thank you to the members of the legislature. Thank you to the authors of these bills. And it is my honor now to sign into law 4 pieces of legislation that go in effect immediately upon signature, and 1 on the masking that will formally go into effect in January of 2026. With that, let's sign these. We'll get around. All right. AB.
Right here.
You're right
Sir.
here. Okay, you already said it. All right. It's AB 49. It's just signing along. Thank you. SB 81. SB 98. SB 805. And SB 627, the anti-masking law. Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you. We're happy to take any questions in just a moment as we all reconvene. Thank you. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks, sir. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Governor, the state of California, the state of Illinois, Los Angeles, Chicago, has there been any conversation between you and Governor Pritzker in terms of any kind of strategic coordination?
Well, we deeply, in fact, significantly on posse comitatus. I think it was very determinative. We had a federal judge on the posse comitatus question where we were successful, Justice Breyer. It occurred right at the peak of the dialectic between the state of Illinois in the Trump administration as it relates to Trump's efforts to federalize troops in Illinois, and Trump backed off days after that decision. So our legal teams substantively are engaged. And our legislative efforts are deeply aligned. We also work through organizations like the Democratic Governors Association. We used to work through the NGA that believed in federalism and 10th Amendment. That's frayed a little in Trump's America because he's bullying every single one of these Republican governors into submission. Sad and tragic. We work around that.
What's your message to Senate Democrats in D.C. who may be thinking of compromising with Republicans in the Trump administration on the shutdown?
Well, I don't think a shutdown advantages anybody, so I hope we can find compromise. It's difficult to do that with a guy who was more interested in playing golf over the weekend.
Do you think Democrats should...
I'll continue. Not only he played golf all the weekend after canceling a meeting with Senate Democrats. The President of the United States canceled a meeting with the leaders in the Senate and in the House of Representatives, and then felt it was more important, hours before a shutdown, to play golf. And then, rather than having a serious meeting, decided to troll those leaders with a Trump 2028 hat that he put on the Resolute desk and sent out a tweet after he sent out an AI video doctored with a racist video of Speaker Jeffries in a sombrero. These are not serious people. Democrats want to compromise. We believe there is a more enlightened path that addresses the crisis of healthcare in this country. And if you think this crisis isn't going to hit you, I assure you, you should check in, because in January, premiums are going to skyrocket on average in the state of California by 97% for those on the exchange. 97%. Let me be more specific. If you receive, with Anthem as an example, the Bronze program, it's $307 a month today. It will be $964 starting January 1st. That's what Republicans and Trump are promoting. One of the biggest increases in the cost of healthcare in American history after some of the biggest cuts in healthcare in American history. So I applaud Leader Jeffries and Leader Schumer for their efforts in standing firm and pushing back against the lies that are being perpetuated by this administration. And they should own up to the fact that they have made this country poorer after claiming they would make it richer, and have made it sicker after claiming they would make it healthier.
But if Democrats sign on the CR as it is right now, with the hope that Republicans will engage in good faith negotiations on Medicaid.
You lose leverage, you lose this country.
So they should hold the line.
You lose leverage, you lose this country. You take Donald Trump at his word? Come on. No one is that naive. No one is that naive.
Governor.
I'm wondering though, is there any concern that this statement you put out yesterday about not providing state funds if they sign this compact, is that now making it so that universities in the state are having to choose between dollars?
There's no choice. This is an easy choice. You know, there's no choice. They don't have a choice. Do the right thing. What's the point of the system? What's the point of the university? What's the point of all of this? If we don't have academic freedom, we're not allowed to pursue without threat. I mean, the hell is going on? That's not a choice. And the fact that I felt I needed to even send that message is rather shocking, because some people think it is. It's not. We don't have a country. It's bigger than the university system. It's what it represents. Envy of the world. I just talked to you about the people in this lab. Every single part of the globe wants those kids in their countries, and they're starting to take them. We can destroy this thing overnight. I won't be part of that, period. Full stop. We'll have their backs. We always do. Proud of that. This legislature, this state has always stepped up. We were the ones who created this damn system. And then the great universities, the private universities, partners with Berkeley at Stanford and Caltech and USC and others. They're part of this. And we're all in this together. I mean, you heard the chancellor, he left with that great Latin phrase about this system, which is biblical in many respects. Many parts, one body. We stand as one, unified. That wasn't the case with universities that sold out across this country. But in this state, our state of mind must be resolute. I don't mean to put pressure on people. I need to put pressure on this moment and pressure test where we are in U.S. history, not just Californian history. And so forgive me for being so firm. This is it. This is it. We're losing this country. We're losing it in real time. This is a chaos presidency. He is a wrecking ball. This is unlike anything we've experienced in our lifetime. It is code red. No time for neutrality. It's time to stand up, pick a side, and be firm and resolute. And that's what I'm calling for.
Governor, last question. The terms of the agreement that was sent to the 9 universities, including USC, largely mirror the one sent to UCLA and the UC system a few months ago following an anti-Semitism investigation. Will you maintain the same standard and full funding instantly from the UC system and UCLA if they enter into a similar agreement?
I have an extraordinarily good working relationship with the president, who happens to be but a few feet away from me. And members of the regents. I have all the confidence in the world that they are navigating this thoughtfully and thoroughly. And we have been working collaboratively for weeks to maintain that collaborative status. And so I'm not concerned about their capacity to organize a strategy that's thoughtful and deliberative, that maintains our values and moves through this. Without resorting to the kind of expressed concerns that I had about the university in question that was on that list.
So you're saying?
I'm saying I have confidence in the UC system to do the right thing.
So you don't think that they will?
I have confidence in the UC system to do the right thing.
Thank you.
The leadership of the UC system and members of the regents, and the fact that it's a public university and we are the public trust in these legislative leaders and their resolve. We'll do the right thing. Thank you, guys. Anybody else?
I just want to ask about the refinery fire down in LA that's expected to send gas prices higher. Is there anything you're doing right now?
It was just moments ago getting a briefing on the incident that occurred apparently late last night, the impacts that it may or may not have as it relates to the spot market and the impacts that I am aware of in the spot market, but the longer term impacts as it relates to gas prices still need to be determined. And so that information is forthcoming. It was a Chevron refinery down in Southern California that was impacted. As many of you know, this is a challenging time for refineries around the globe, not just in the state of California. And so it is an area of real sensitivity as it relates to the concerns around gas prices. And I want to just applaud, because it would be remiss, considering who's to my right and the people behind me, in a bipartisan manner, the work that the legislature did in the bills that I signed just a week ago in relationship to the anxiety around supply, security, and affordability. And I appreciate the legislature's sense of urgency to address that issue in a very comprehensive way this year. But we have work to do in the Valero refinery, and that I can assure you is a tall task that has consumed members of my administration, led by those that are at the California Energy Commission, by the way, beneficiaries of the legislation I signed today, and a task force that is working overtime, led by a remarkable gentleman by the name of Siva, who is hoping to come up with a strategy to address that concern in particular.
Just quickly, will you switch to the winter blend of the gasoline earlier to kind of make up for those?
Yeah, we make those recommendations come from the experts, the California Air Resources Board and others around this time. It's a good question and timely question around October, November. I think, on that issue, we make that judgment on an annual basis. And I think 3 out of the last 4 years or 2 out of the last 3, we've moved very quickly to do just that. There's a deeper question about that whole process that also is under review. And you may have seen we also just signed some legislation around ethanol as well to address some of the mix in our fuel supply, to address some of the price and affordability. But no, that decision should be made with recommendations forthcoming from CARB very, very shortly.
Mr. Governor, thanks for your time today, and thanks to Assemblymember Wicks and all the members of the legislature and Advisor Myers for also being here. Question for you about the press release yesterday. Thanks for sending it out about no state funding for, quote, sellout universities. What's your message to universities who weigh into this?
Well, I believe in academic freedom. I believe it's what made California the 4th largest economy in the world. There's the American dream, and there's only one other state that's attached to a dream, California. It's what makes the dream possible. It's not just this conveyor belt for talent that's part of that formula for success. It's our investment in research and development. That's why we have more scientists, engineers, more Nobel laureates than any other state, any other jurisdiction in the world. 18% of the world's R&D is here. Only Germany and China can lay claim to a higher percentage of research and development occurring in this state. It's because of academic freedom. They want to put the thumb on that. They want to prescribe what that should or should not look like. And so I won't be part of that. And I don't believe the legislature will be part of that. And so we wanted to send a clear message. We will not be part of that. And I thought it was important to do so at this critical moment.
Question?
I do want to go back.
Well, forgive me only because she hasn't had a chance.
Governor, on the shutdown, the White House is accusing Democrats of trying to allow undocumented immigrants to access Medicaid, and that's what they're trying to get. And the White House specifically said that they're trying to get California to continue using a, quote, loophole to fund Medi-Cal for undocumented immigrants. With the changes to enrollment that are coming in January, is that still accurate, and just your response to them?
Well, what the president's saying, he's lying. Speaker Johnson's lying. They're lying to the American people. It's shameful. Period. Full stop. They know that. I mean, they can't even hide that fact. You can see their physiology and almost a smile on their face when they suggest that. So I reject the premise of their assertions, period, full stop.
Can you explain how it's different for Medi-Cal?
States have the ability to do what states do, independent of the federal contributions. And so they're completely, I mean, I guess they're trying to connect their displeasure with what California and many other states do with state resources in this space. And that is a very separate conversation. It's a separate topic. It has nothing to do with their assertions in relationship to the government shutdown. And stewardship of this process. Again, a few years ago, we were truly on the leading and cutting edge of some of these conversations, and it is, I think, a very positive development in this country to see more progress in this space, broader understanding, deeper recognition of how much harm we've done, how much damage we've done to ourselves and our bodies, and the challenges we continue to face in chronic disease, how we can mitigate and prevent it, and how this is part of our healthcare delivery. One of the things that's unfortunate about what's happening across this country is while they're asserting one thing in terms of making America healthy again, they're doing something radical on the other side of that, the most significant cutbacks, the most consequential rollbacks of health care coverage in American history, with premiums that are about to double, 97% on average for Californians. We expect 600,000 Californians to lose their health coverage in January, 600,000 that can no longer afford health coverage if the Big Beautiful Bill and its impacts on Obamacare and the elimination of these subsidies go away. And so you can't do one without the other. And I think what makes me most proud of what the Assembly members doing and what our Secretary has done is that we have a comprehensive strategy to healthcare. And then, by the way, includes the environment, which is a huge part of the air we breathe, the water we drink. So it's just not good enough to make a case against ultra-processed foods unless you're making a case for a healthcare delivery system and preventative care and making a case for integrating these values and these principles. So I think California is a model. We're hardly perfect. No one's naive. There are tremendous challenges, but this is a big part of our effort. And final point on this, and before we open up to questions. We opened shortly after we became the first state in the U.S. to provide universal health care, regardless of pre-existing conditions, ability to pay, and your status. We also opened an office of health care affordability. It's not gotten the kind of attention I think it deserves. It's actually created some numeric targets to reduce health care costs. It's also a component part of CalRx and the work we're doing to start providing our own drugs like insulin. We're going to, by the way, make a big announcement on that next week. A little bit of a preview in that space. We've done it for naloxone. We're looking at the diaper space, et cetera, to lower the cost, not subsidize cost, but to actually lower the cost of production and cost to the taxpayers in the state. But the Office of Healthcare Affordability has a numeric target as well for healthy foods. And I don't think there's anything comparable anywhere in the country that we are truly focusing on health care, not sick care. We're truly focused on a preventative care model, and a big part of that is the Healthy Foods initiatives. And a big part of that is the work that is going to be entrusted over the course of the next few years at the Department of Public Health to identify what are currently thousands and thousands and thousands of these additives that, by the way, do not exist in the European Union and many other parts of the globe that somehow we've allowed to exist and persist here through neglect. And California will be leading the nation. FDA will do their part. I don't have confidence ultimately where that goes, but I do have confidence where these folks go over the course of the next few years. So I just want to add that to broaden, I hope, the appeal and the comprehensive nature of what we're advancing and announcing here today. With that, we're here as well to answer any questions.
Governor, on that note of healthcare policy, what do you say to Republicans who are tying this shutdown? They're calling it a referendum on healthcare for immigrants and similar policies that you've embraced in California.
Well, they're lying. They're just lying. I don't think it needs any deeper explanation. They are lying. They made it up. And it just shows how, I mean, not only sort of desperate and pathetic to knowingly lie to the American people, particularly people in positions of power and influence, the Speaker himself, not just the President of the United States, though that's just, every minute of every hour of every day. But it also shows how wrong they are and the overwhelming, now bipartisan opposition to these massive increases in healthcare costs that are going in effect in January. And by the way, I mentioned 600,000 people in the state of California. We think that is a conservative number. We actually ran 3 different surveys on this to come up with that number. We put that out, published that a number of months ago. It's over 4 million people that they conservatively estimate nationwide. We were looking just at the Anthem Bronze Plan. This is something familiar with people on the California Exchange, the Bronze Plan. Right now, if you're on the Bronze Plan, it's about $307. It's going to go up to $964. $307 a month to $964. We're talking about 100% increase across the board in the aggregate, but some people are living with triple-digit increases. And this is jaw-dropping, and people are finally starting to understand that. That's why they're desperate to paint a different picture. But again, they're lying.
Governor, can you talk about the timeline on the law you just signed?
Yeah.
It's a couple years before the phase-out kicks in, and then it's almost 7 years before the ban kicks in.
Yeah, so it's a multi-year process that on July 1st of 2029, we'll move forward with the first phase where we are in the process of moving away from the ultra-processed food definitions that are being put together by staff and are being organized in a very deliberative way. So we're giving this sort of 3-year window of opportunity. By the way, the bill, to Jesse's credit, the author's credit, every 5 years will reassess the status of those reviews and provide an additional 3-way pathway to continue that phase out. So it's ample time. There's 50 amendments through this process. We can get into the sausage making here, but it is nonetheless a nation-leading effort, and I think was done, and forgive me, I'll ask the author to speak, in an extraordinarily responsible way and responsive to the concerns that we were way ahead of our skis, meaning those amendments, I think, reflected a pragmatic approach to advance this ideal.
Yeah, the governor's exactly right. The goal here was to do this in a thoughtful, nuanced, and pragmatic way. And so as the governor mentioned, the bill will go into effect. Schools will have to start to phase out those harmful ultra-processed foods in 2029, but we give them a little bit of a runway to comply with that, and that is something that we decided to do because of feedback that we got from school districts, from school nutrition professionals, from researchers, from the department. So we want this to be done in a thoughtful, workable way to do sound policy, and so giving that little flex in the system will allow school districts to do that. But we think that a lot of school districts, because of the way that procurement works, are going to be fully compliant with the bill well in advance of the final deadline, and that our kids are going to be getting the healthy, nutritious, real foods that they deserve shortly after 2029.
But that doesn't, and I think this is important, you've seen this with multiple other strategies the state has advanced, including, by the way, just on the cell phone ban. That was a 2-year phase-in, and we saw the vast majority of districts move much sooner. So our hope and expectation, you heard from the superintendent here in LA Unified School District and how they've made a lot of progress. I know other school districts, similar progress, that you can see districts move much more quickly beyond that statewide ban. But we're looking at a system that's unlike any system in the United States. It's 1,050 school districts and 58 counties. This is the largest system of its type. And so one size doesn't fit all, and we have to be sensitive and mindful to those districts that may need a little extra time.
Governor, your reaction to the arrest made today in connection to the Palisades fire?
Well, I mean, I want to thank the ATF. I want to thank the Department of Justice for a job well done, and the work that was done initially through the investigations unit at LA Fire Department as well. And so we're pleased. Now, there's a process here. One falls. He's accused of this crime. If indeed it is, this suspect is ultimately held accountable. That at least, I think, calms the fear and anxiety that some people felt around what and who was responsible and how this actually occurred. There are a lot of theories, a lot of thoughts, a lot of conspiracies as well out there. And so hopefully this lands some clarity in that respect. Beyond that, I just want to give you a little heads up. There's an important report that's coming out about our preparedness and about our response. You may recall a number of months back we announced the nation's leading group, the FSRI group, which is the Fire Response Research Institute. They are putting out a 2-part report, an independent report on preparation and response. The first phase of that report is coming out the week of October 20th. It will not be about the ignition, but it will be about preparation and response. And again, it's the first phase of a 2-phase report that was promised, not just promoted, a number of months ago. And so all of these things are instructive, as will be the review of what is the accused may or may have not done, whether or not these embers that allegedly were still brewing underground, what could be done as it relates to any lessons learned in that respect. We saw similar things. We've seen a lot of fire starts over the years. Oakland Hills, there were some similar versions of this. I've seen some other larger fires, particularly in the root system of a lot of these larger forest fires. But all those things are going to be important.
As a quick follow-up to that point, when it comes to the reignition here today, we saw that they made a clear link this morning between that fire that started January 1st, smoldered underground, then reignited to burn down much of the Palisades. People in the Palisades are speaking out today, specifically on social media that I saw, said that the city, county, the state may be liable here. Are you concerned about potential liability?
Well, I think they found the arsonist, and we'll look at the investigation and what backed up this indictment, and then we'll look at the facts and judge on the basis of those facts. And there's when it comes to the issue of fire liability, I know a thing or two, going back to Paradise and the process that unfolds there and how this is done without political interference and how the facts need to be pursued without any bias or political interference. And I just want to know the facts, period. And ultimately then we'll judge culpability. Those facts are not only being assessed as it relates to this indictment by the federal government of this alleged arsonist, but obviously those facts are currently being reviewed as it relates to the fire in Altadena as well. And so I just want to leave it at that until we get all those details.
Last question.
Well, that is, for you guys, remarkable. I'm going to take advantage of this and wish you all a great weekend. Well, I hope it gives some closure as it relates to some of the anxiety that may have been felt. How did this happen? Who's responsible? Can this happen again? What lessons we learn? So at least from that perspective, a little bit of closure. That said, it's cold comfort for those who lost their homes and are coming through the recovery. What I do say is that we need to really now, I think, call out why the President of the United States and Congress has refused to provide support to those that have been victimized by this arsonist and this devastation. $39 billion for months and months and months. And the President of the United States has said nothing. Speaker of the House said he's not interested in helping the American people that were devastated, lives torn asunder here in Los Angeles. I mean, where is the accountability in that respect? Where's the spirit that defines the best of this country? To be here for fellow Americans in the time of recovery, uncertainty. It's been months, not a peep from the President of the United States, not a word from Speaker Johnson. I was proud as a taxpayer, as an American, to have Speaker Johnson's back when his district in his state was devastated by floods. I said the same thing to Greg Abbott as we sent him personnel and support because he needed it with the devastation of the flood. And I'm proud that our tax dollars, disproportionately California's tax dollars, will be used to help support the recovery in Texas. That's what makes America great. Not a word from the Republican Party, not a word from Speaker Johnson, not a word from the President of the United States. I applaud the work that initiated under the Biden administration in this investigation and the work that this administration did as it relates to finding this person and ultimately pushing these charges and making these charges. But I find it shameful that they haven't done a damn thing for the thousands of people who lost their homes and whose lives were devastated from this disaster. Not a word from the President of the United States.
Thank you, everyone.
Well, that was a long process as well, and in many respects, has connected some of the ethnic studies questions, and both are subject to appropriation and support in the legislature in the next few years, and both are nuanced, and both have their supporters and their detractors, and both are works in progress. And I thought it important to sign that bill on the second anniversary of the terrorist act by Hamas on October 7th. By the way, let me applaud Jared Kushner and Witkoff and others for what appears to be a job well done on phase one of a peace deal agreement. Long overdue, and that's not, there's no partisanship in this respect. We are here to promote peace and just address these lives torn asunder. So I thought it was appropriate to put it out on that date, but it's a work in progress, meaning we're setting up the standards for deal with hate, discrimination across the spectrum, and we have work to do to set up that office and the coordinators throughout the system, and that work begins in next year's budget.
Governor, you haven't yet decided if you're fully satisfied with that explanation, but that
I just received the report. I'm just reviewing the report from UC. I would extend that same criteria as you framed the question as it relates to reviewing the justification for doing something that appears to be similar at the CSU system, would request and will receive similar information on the basis of that information that I received recently at UC Berkeley.
And just one follow-up. It's been more than 2 months since the Trump administration proposed a $1 billion UCLA settlement. Is there a timeline to sign off on a UC deal with?
Well, that's a regental question, and I've made my position very, very clear on that. Very clear on that. And it was reinforced, forgive me once again, proximate to USC, in the context of this quote-unquote compact that the Trump administration is seeking, which is just simply without precedent in modern American history. And it is assault on academic freedom. And again, it is consistent with an assault against institutions across the spectrum of independent thinking and cultivation of independent thought. And that should put chills up the spine of everybody. And so I am crystal clear that we should not be negotiating on his terms.
But on that $1 billion settlement.
And that is very much directed to your question about that $1 billion settlement at UCLA. Anybody else?
I'll ask.
And I'm happy to ask myself one question. And that is, no, I'm joking. I've never seen you guys so timid, so quiet. It's almost awkward.
Governor, your reaction to the Camp Pendleton events planned?
Well, we'll see what actually takes place. We were under the understanding they were going to close I-5, up to 80,000 vehicles on Friday, tomorrow, and Saturday. And then they seem to have backed off on that. They were going to move forward with a display, doing something, but they're not clearly sharing that with state officials. It was foundational and fundamental that we needed to be part of that if we were going to shut down the freeway to make sure it was done in an appropriate manner. But it appears, as I said, they've backed off. So to be determined what they are proposing to do. We're proud of this country, proud of our military, proud of the 250th anniversary. Anything we can do to celebrate our vets, to celebrate our heroes, I'm all for. Let's just do it in coordination and collaboration with state and local leaders. That continues to be a struggle with this administration that is more interested in doing things to people than doing things with people in relationship to these kind of activities.
Do you have any thoughts on the upcoming No Kings events that are taking place this weekend, and any advice for those who might be participating?
Well, my advice is if you participate, do so peacefully, do so thoughtfully, because there's one person that hopes you don't, that hopes there is disruption, there's some violence, and he will exploit that, and he will take advantage of that in a profound and consequential way. I hope people come out in unprecedented numbers. And I hope they do it not just for themselves, but for each other and for the 249 years that our founding fathers lived and died for, and those enduring principles that are at stake. No kings. A declaration of independence against the tyranny, against lawlessness in the context that there was no rule of law. It was the rule of the king. And I think increasingly people are waking up to the rule of law in this country, increasingly appearing to be the rule of Don. And I hope it's dawning on people how precious this moment is and what's at stake. And so I hope people put a stake in the ground, take the opportunity and time to participate this weekend, but again, do so peacefully with a deep realization of the consequences on what the founding fathers were all about. Co-equal branches of government, popular sovereignty, the rule of law, fundamental values that have endured for 249 years, and all of that is at stake.
Last question. My name's Anna. I'm a reporter with KCRA 3 News. We're seeing reports that President Trump is deploying more than 100 federal agents to Alameda County starting tomorrow. What's your reaction to that move, and any idea where they'll go from there?
Well, it's absolutely predictable. It's a script that's been written for centuries. It's the authoritarian playbook. You announce your intention to send the military to streets, doing domestic policing operations. You wildly overstate or completely make up crime statistics that are not real, that do not justify such action. And for this administration, you send first masked men to the cities that you want to militarize. You send your spokesperson, this bloviator by the name of Bovino, I think is his name, or the bagman, Homan, out there. You do a bunch of social media videos. You bring your entire press corps there to highlight your patriotism as you're out there taking strawberry salesmen off the street. You find a few people that deserve to be taken off the street, unquestionably. You highlight those, but there's hundreds that are collateral damage. Communities are torn asunder, creates anxiety and stress, and that manifests into expressions of free speech. And then you use those expressions and those images as the justification to send the guard and suppress free speech, suppress free expression. And you do that not only June, July, August, September, but you dial it up around election time. You dial it up around November, you do it a few weeks before, you dial it up in more and more cities, you suppress the vote, and you continue the path of rigging what we know is the intention of this administration, to rig next year's midterms and perhaps to wreck this country, as this president has tried to do on multiple occasions, and I don't need to give you any more evidence of that than what he tried to do on January 6th, where he tried to light a match to democracy. He tried to wreck this country, tried to dial in and find 11,000, 12,000 votes in Georgia, and of course what he's doing and just did in North Carolina, what he's trying to do in Indiana, what he did with 5 votes in Texas. It's code red for our democracy, and this is as predictable as daylight and darkness, but the darkness of this administration has no peers, and it is a disgrace, but it is hardly surprising. It cannot be allowed to be normalized, and we need to call it out for what it is.
So today, the Trump administration announced they're sending election monitors to 5 specific counties here in the state of California. They have no business doing that. They have no basis to do that. In fact, we have a statewide election for a statewide constitution. This is about voter intimidation. This is about voter suppression, period, full stop. And it's a pattern, isn't it? It's consistent with what they've done with the federalization of the National Guard and the intimidation and the chill that's created. They'll do that right around Election Day as well. Same thing with ICE and Border Patrol, masked men. Watch that space, showing up in and around polling booths and voting places. But this is a bridge too far. And I hope people understand it's a bridge that they're trying to build, the scaffolding for all across this country in next November's election. They do not believe in fair and free elections. Our republic, our democracy is on the line. We all need to wake up.
Mr. Bonta, are you staying out of the governor's race still? Is that still a plan for you?
Well, I haven't said I wasn't going to run for a 3rd term.
I am staying out of the governor's race. I am honored, grateful, feel it's a privilege to serve as AG anytime, and particularly in these times. This is the most important moment and the most important job I've ever had. I want to give everything I have to it, my time, my attention, my passion, my energy, my focus. We have more than one case a week. We're fighting for the future of our democracy, rights, protections, the rule of law, our Constitution, and I want to be central to that fight on behalf of the people of this great state and this great country. So I'm completely focused on being the best AG I can.
I wanted to just follow up. You mentioned the fundraising email this morning, directing donations to the fight in Indiana. Can you sort of put, from your perspective at this moment, obviously it's changing as other states jump in, and but how does Prop 50 fit into the national?
Look, this guy, Donald Trump, wants to rig the election before one vote is cast. It's completely consistent with a guy that referenced January 6th as a beautiful day, where he tried to light democracy on fire and tried to wreck our democracy. He made phone calls to the Secretary of State in Georgia, and he followed up consistent practice by making calls to governors all across this country, starting with Greg Abbott, who he later said he was, quote unquote, entitled to 5 new Texas seats. You saw what happened in Missouri, saw what happened in North Carolina. Their legislative leaders couldn't even, they just said they might as well have used the phrase, dear leader. What they're doing now with special session, which, by the way, the governor knows better. He didn't want to do this in Indiana, but the threats coming from the Trump administration to Republican governor, this is just unprecedented in American history. And so Prop 50 is our way of fighting back. He's rigging the game. He can't win. He's weak. That's what this is all about. He's a race against the clock. He knows he's going to lose the midterm elections. He knows it, so he has to change the rules because he can't win fairly. He can't win if the rules are not changed in his favor. That's why he's rigging the election. That's why he sent masked men, Greg Bovino, who's in court appropriately today. When we kicked off our Prop 50 campaign, he sent his masked men, his secret police. They at least appear to be acting as secret police, sworn in office, swearing an oath to the President of the United States. Listen to Bovino's defense of what he just did, throwing chemicals at people against a court order. He said, I work for the President and Kristi Noem. No, you don't. You work for the people of the United States of America. You took an oath of office to the Constitution of the United States of America, not to one man. That's a preview of things to come, part of the rigging, part of the voter suppression. It's exactly why the National Guard were federalized through Election Day. That's a preview of things to come, not just in California, but all across the United States in 2026. And yes, and the AG, I'm sure, is eager to grab the mic on this final point. That's why he sent these election monitors to 5 curious counties in the state of California, a preview of things to come all across the United States of America, to intimidate, to create a false pretext, to go to federal court and say somehow this election was stolen, that it was conducted illegally. This is all happening in plain sight. This is not about blue versus red. This is about red, white, and blue. This is about the United States of America. It's about what our founding fathers lived and died for. So Prop 50 is central to that. Being successful is foundational to that. And so we're fighting back. And we're doing it not just rhetorically. We're doing it substantively through lawsuits, litigation, policy making, and the work that Kim is doing and her team in terms of trying to address people's anxieties and fears and needs. And we're doing it substantively, the people of this state. And I think they're going to send a very powerful message to the rest of the country that there has to be a new approach to dealing with Trump and Trumpism, that what we've done in the past has not been working. He did not expect that we would go to the ballot. I think the best he expected is I would submit an op-ed and pray that maybe one of the major newspapers would pick it up. They didn't expect this. And the fact is, 1.2 million contributors, millions of people stepped up to this from all 50 states. That's why it's Prop 50. It's about the United States of America, not just the state of California. They didn't expect people to stand up like that. They didn't expect 7 million people to peacefully protest at the No Kings rally. People are waking up and pushing back. And again, applaud the AG for doing just that here today.
Question for you when it comes to Prop 50. The New York Times had an article reporting on a conversation in which you and your team members mentioned that you no longer need campaign donations from small donors. Can you kind of expand on the confidence that exudes about the election?
Well, I know I did I don't know about any reporting about those Zoom conversations, but at a very public interaction with that donor base, because I did a video saying, please stop sending money. 1.2 million contributors, or contributions rather, have been received. $38 million in small dollar. It just blew past our expectation. And so we have the budget, period, full stop, to complete what we set out to do, which was to be successful and win Proposition 50. I admit, and I appreciate the question, it's the first time, I don't know, likely to be the last time, that I've ever said, stop, please don't send any more money. I don't know many elected officials have ever been able to lay claim to that, period, full stop. And I said, just, $10, $20, particularly now in light of everything we've been discussing here today about food insecurity and the like is a lot of money to people. And so I said, please keep your money or redirect it to other causes. And we began to orient some consideration to that in Indiana and what the governor just did with a special session there, which is extraordinary, considering the coercion that's gone on in Indiana to do this mid-decade redistricting and to other states and other causes. So that's it. But I also made it crystal clear. It doesn't mean we've won the campaign. Quite the contrary. It just means we're being honest with people. We don't need the money. But the money that has been raised is going to be utilized for our field campaign, which is one of the biggest in state's history, and to make sure we deliver on what we've been promoting. So we made the point we're running the 110-yard dash, not the 90-yard dash. It's all about get out the vote now. But the low dollar money we just don't need at this moment.
Mr. Governor, to follow up on that, I wonder in this final week, the home stretch, do you have plans to be out on the campaign trail this weekend?
Or yesterday, last night, today, every day. No, that's all I've been doing. I mean, I've been all over the state. Just got in late last night from Southern California, a number of events. We were in San Jose just a few days ago doing events and get out the vote. And look, this is, it's a familiar time of the year for a lot of us. And so a week or so left to Election Day. And to me, everything's on the line. And I don't, what more evidence you need? This lawsuit, 42 others plus that the AG is filed now, what's going on with these illegal tariffs and the impact that's having on cost of candy, the cost of backpacks and back-to-school supplies, the impacts of those tariffs, those taxes on all of you, the recklessness of this administration, yes, the wrecking ball at the White House and the East Wing, the $173 million that they apparently were able to find for Kristi Noem's brand new planes, but they can't again find money for food stamps at this time. The supine Congress and increasingly supine Supreme Court, this shadow docket, the emergency docket, where they continue to give license to the President of the United States to racially profile Americans. Basis of their skin color, where they congregate, and the language they speak. I mean, this is extraordinary moment. And so I think Prop 50 is deeply part of that. And so we're going to do everything we can over the course of the next week to remind people what's at stake and I think really trip up some of that momentum on the Trump administration.
From California to food bank, can you talk about what exactly would it do and how long is that expected?
It's not enough. It's 1 point. Look, we've got some humility here. It's $1.1 billion a month that the federal government is providing. So the food banks at this time of year, again, are busy. And the food bank, all their representatives will say this, $80 million is not going to be close to enough. I've talked with legislative leaders. I'm going to add a topic, the next conversation around the annex. Appreciate that. But I talked to legislative leaders about this issue and what we can do together. I'm in the process, as you know, of putting together next year's budget. This is when I get busy with the budget, which I'll submit in January, and additional resources that we can work together to find. Trying to do that for a myriad of other programs, from Planned Parenthood to issues across the spectrum because of what's happened in Washington, D.C., and have to find a way to balance all those things. But we were pleased to be able to work with agency to get those dollars distributed. And again, it's to 50 specific grantees, and then they work with hundreds, quite literally hundreds, over 2,000 specific pantries and programs throughout the state. We're encouraging more volunteers. We're bringing in our own volunteer corps and, again, the National Guard to the extent logistics becomes a growing issue. But no, $80 million, I'm mindful, is not going to do the job, and so we're going to have to do more.
I want to first acknowledge that neither one of you are leading the Capitol Annex project, but Mr. Attorney General, you voted to approve it in 2018. Mr. Governor, the Department of General Services, which you oversee, is part of it.
It has been 3 years since the legislature updated the public on the cost of that project. It is happening right now. If maybe one of your windows could probably oversee it. You could see the construction is happening, but yet the legislature's Joint Rules Committee refuses to provide an update. We've reported that they have violated the Legislative Open Records Act. They are continuing to withhold public records. I have asked for an interview for more than a year now, and no one will provide an update. I mean, is that appropriate on one of the most expensive buildings in the United States at this point?
You're my attorney. By the way, I don't think it's appropriate. They should provide you the information, period, full stop. But for you to conflate or compare and contrast is, with all due respect, I think that I would separate the ballroom and what Donald Trump just did and desecration and the process and that he evolved and the fact that he secured $300 million under curious circumstances from the annex and what the legislature is trying to do. And I'm not trying to defend those actions, but absolutely they should provide. No, but just balancing.
I mean, there's construction happening in that capital and our capital, and so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, very.
Is that appropriate, though? I mean, truly, for the public to not know how much
they should know.
Costs.
That's what I said. You should get that information. I agree. It's inappropriate. By the way, I didn't know they were not talking to you. I apologize that members of the legislature are not talking to you. They're on recess. I'll check in with them. Let me know. I'm happy to help you try to get access to members of the California legislature with respect, not my branch of government, but I'm happy because as a taxpayer, I'd like to know as well. I appreciate the question you asked, and I think it would be appropriate to provide that information, and you should have access to it. It's the public's building. You absolutely deserve that. So yes, it's inappropriate. Yes, you deserve that information, and yes, we're happy to help you. Senator Alex Padilla, everybody. Oh, we got some T-shirts. We have a few T-shirts. How's everybody doing? Padilla already told me, he said, the first pitch is at 5 o'clock, so you better get your ass out of here by 5. And that is not easy for me to say as a lifelong Giants fan. But go Dodgers, go Dodgers. Yeah, not easy, not easy. But being here with all of you, on the other hand, it doesn't get better than this. And so look, I just want to build on a little bit. You've heard from so many extraordinary people. And by the way, I appreciate. And how many of you knew Vice President Harris was going to be here? The same. Look, for me, one of the most extraordinary things about this entire journey we've been on over the last 10, 11 weeks is how it's brought all of you together, how it's brought the party together, it's how it's brought these remarkable elected leaders together in a show of unity at a moment of time where we need to be unified, where we need to stand tall and stand firm in our convictions. But let's be honest, why are we all here? We're here because Donald Trump is an historic president. He's an historically unpopular president. We're here because even Trump understands that. Why else would he make a call to Greg Abbott? Why else would he tell the governor of Texas that he's quote unquote entitled? Just think about that word. That sends chills up your spine. Entitled to 5 seats. You don't do that from a position of strength. Donald Trump is nothing if not this: weakness masquerading as strength. As a consequence of that call, and a recognition that he will lose the 2026 midterm election, he didn't expect you to show up. He didn't expect any of this to happen. He thought maybe we'd have a candlelight vigil, maybe we would hold hands, maybe we could all come together and do an op-ed in the LA Times and, just say what it could have, should have done something. They never expected this. They never expected all of you. They never expected this show of unity and support and recognition. And look, It's not about Trump, this election. At the end of the day, it's about the future of our country. 249 years. Next year, we're going to celebrate 250 years of the Founding Fathers, the best of the Roman Republic, the best of Greek democracy, co-equal branches of government, checks and balances, popular sovereignty, the rule of law. That's what this is all about. But increasingly, we know that it's not about the rule of law. Increasingly, it appears to be about the rule of Don. And I hope and I expect that people are waking up. It's dawning on them what's at stake in this country. These guys are not screwing around. They're surgical. They want to roll back all of the progress last half century. They want to put America in reverse. They want to bring us back to a pre-1960s world, maybe even 1860s by the time we're done with this. Think about it. Women's rights, LGBTQ rights, we're seeing it with voting rights across the spectrum. This rights regression that's going on in this country. And I love what Adam Schiff said. They poked the bear and we have woken up. But you're seeing people wake up everywhere. 7 million of you showed up. No crowns, no thrones, no kings. You showed up. The biggest protest since the late 1960s. People are showing up, not just for yourselves, you're showing up for each other. You're showing up for those enduring values of our founding fathers. You recognize what's at stake, and you're putting a stake in the ground. You took the time to be here. You haven't fallen prey to cynicism. You haven't fallen prey to anxiety. You haven't fallen prey to the fear. You are literally the antidote to all that. And he did not count on that. It's about shock and awe. It's about exhausting you. It's about folks giving up and giving into that cynicism. So here we are. Here we are. Days away from this historic election. Days away from sending a message. And a year from now, what this is all about is Democrats getting back on our toes, not our heels, getting our mojo back. I mean, I don't know what happened to us last few months. You know, everybody all, hand wringing and all this. But we're back. The biggest story, you know it. You all know this. I cannot wait for November 5th, November 6th, and all the punditry. Historic victories all across the United States of America. Proposition 50 winning by double digits. A new governor in New Jersey, a new governor in Virginia. Democrats back, united, standing tall and firm for health care. Standing tall to our diverse communities, standing tall for the Founding Fathers. That's what this election is all about. So I just want to thank you. I mean this, just thank you. I'll end as I began. Thank you for giving a damn. And thank you for recognizing this. I'll close on this. That the future, this is important. We cannot afford to run the 90-yard dash. Oh, you Angelinos, you got the Olympics coming in 2028. They do not run the 90-yard dash. They run the 110-yard dash. We have got to be at peak on Election Day. We cannot take anything for granted. I may have asked you to stop sending money. That may never happen again. But that didn't mean this campaign was over. Quite the contrary. The future is not something to experience. It's something to manifest. The future is not in front of us, it's inside of us. It's decisions, not conditions, that will determine our fate and future. So thank you for all you have done to get us to this remarkable moment in this campaign. But more importantly, thank you for what you'll do over the next 72 hours to bring home this historic victory for democracy, for our republic, and send a message to Donald Trump. Hell no, we are done. We are done with being treated like this. Thank you all very much for everything you've done. And let's get out there and vote yes on 50. Thank you, guys. Thank you all.